And we are live for the pre-show of today's N10-008 Network Plus Study Group. Look, I've got stats, stream settings, the analytics are good. Hello, everyone. Hello, chat room. Hey, everybody. I am just trying to get these things done. My lower thirds look good. We're just testing. I'm recording down here, obviously. Oh, we are streaming up here. Sorry about the banging around. That's normal pre-show, I guess, for us. Today is all the N10-008 Network Plus Q&A. Got lots to go through. Let's put away a few things. Let's tidy up, shall we? I should have probably done that before the stream started. What are you going to do? That's the way it works. So I will say I do like the comments about the speed. We were just talking at the pre-show. It will be weird. Do you think it's weird for you? Think of how it is for me. That's how it works. Hey, Mario, happy holidays to you as well. Thanks for being here. How's everybody doing? Thanks for being in here. Everyone check in. Where's everybody checking in from? We're live. Of course, Malk is here. Hey, Malk, thanks for being here again, still. Now I question if Malk ever leaves. Are you? You've got to go do something else, right? I appreciate you being here, though. Thanks so much. We really do like it when we do these live streams. It's so much fun when everyone's here and we can do Q&A, and so much fun to do it. It is, so Benjamin's taking Network Plus on Saturday. This will be good. I can't wait. So this will be your last check. See how it goes. See what's happening. We'll always work from there. We've got folks checking in from Connecticut. We've got Victoria, Texas. We got Orlando, Germany. I think there's got to be some connection in my past, right? It would just make sense if we were doing that. So much happening here. I'm busy. It's the holidays, obviously, the holiday season. And so there's all kinds of holiday stuff going on at the studio. There is also work being done and more content. There's plans for next year. I'm building out more. I've got a roadmap that I keep everything on, so I'm trying to figure out where to fit in different new training things, if there are going to be new training things. It's really more of an if at this point, trying to find the right time. Hello, Georgia and Florida and Seattle and Brazil and Houston and Arizona and Oklahoma City and Arkansas and all kinds. Alaska's here. I missed a few up there. I'm sorry, folks. I missed you up there. And another Arkansas, New York City. And Georgia is here. There's some Florida folks. Got to have Florida checking in every now and then. That would be nice. So, of course, here we are based in Florida. So it's the brisk winter season where outside it is, I don't know what the temperature is right now. Let's do a quick check. So this will be the temperature as I sometimes hear people say, this is an American at 68 degrees. It's not American, it's Fahrenheit. I guess that's what we're turning it into. So that's sort of how that works. 68 degrees, high 72 today. It's going to start raining tonight. So for those of you stopping by, don't stop by. Capital Florida. It's not Miami. You would think South Florida would be it, but no. We created the capital well before South Florida was hopping, I guess. We were trying to figure out, when we made the capital, do we put it in Jacksonville, which is in the far east of the northern part of the state, or do we put it in Pensacola, which is in the far west? Like, both of those are at the very ends of the top of the state, but they just argued about it. So like any good governmental agency, they decided to compromise by putting it in the middle of the northern part of the state. And there was just a little Indian village there called Tallahassee. There really was nothing there. And that's what they did. So exactly. It's sort of the same way they came about the ATM cell. And not talking about automatic teller machines, talking about the ATM topology / protocol, and how they never were really able to get this going. Now after all the work I did, I'm now seeing that I am flickering on my main screen. I don't know what's up with that. So we'll have to deal with that for the live stream, because with 4 minutes left, there's just no time to fix and troubleshoot. But I will start working on that once we're done here. It's not awful. Happens occasionally, so you may see it kind of go in and out for some reason. I think I know the reason, but I've got to work on that. There's more to do, more work to be done. Thanks for checking in, folks. UK is here. New Jersey, thanks for being here. Cape Town, South Africa. Howard Beach, New York. Barbados is here. Another Cape Town. Lots of Cape Town. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I guess the rest of the world is watching the football. We don't know what to call it in the United States. We're trying to be nice to our folks in other parts of the world by calling it football, but we really don't think of it as football because it's, to us, it's not football. To us, it's soccer, of course, and working that. So I don't know. I don't know where to go. We have so many people on from the U.S. We also have people internationally. So for the international sporting event that is currently going on, we wish them all the best. There, that's my politically correct response to people watching sport. I'm not watching sport right now. I'm so busy with other things. I rarely watch a sporting event. I'm not really sure the last time I watched a sporting event from the very beginning to the very end. I walking by, maybe I see it for a moment, but I rarely watch a sporting event to be able to know what's going on. Not even the Super Bowl. Don't even, because I have no interest in it now. I'm so busy doing other things. Once you sort of lose the day-to-day, what's going on, because half of the fun of professional and college sports is you can sort of follow your favorite players, see how the team is doing, talk about the rivalries. And now when people say, hey, what do you think of that team this year? And I think I have no idea. Are they good? Oh, are they? Okay, then I like them, I guess. I don't know. I never worked through that. So we'll have to eventually, someday, maybe or maybe not, I will finally get back to being lazy enough to sit on the couch and use the remote and make that happen. I would always have some things to say because there would always be the Monday morning talks. Hey, did you catch the game this weekend? But I always had like just normal phrases to say. Yeah, defense was amazing. Just sort of somebody's defense was amazing. Those turnovers, they will kill you. Can you believe that ending? I can't believe they pulled it off. So there's plenty of stuff I've got sort of hidden in my pocket. I can always pull out and say, but that's kind of how it works for me. And then they tell me what happened, and then I know for the next conversation I have on Monday, I just repeat what they told me. So it's really more of a course in how to do the whisper in your ear and then repeat what people are saying kind of scenario. I'll figure it out. Now, if we want to, in our house, we talk about so many things. Last night around the dinner table, we talked about fusion power, like with the announcement that was made yesterday. And then we always have odd conversations around those things. We always go to the, well, that's what they're telling us. That's the conversation we always have. Sure, but that's what they're telling us, sort of in tongue-in-cheek. I think it's pretty obvious what the fusion work going on and the announcement and all of those things. There really was nothing behind it, but we just played that there was. It's more fun that way. Let's bring up Keynote. That's not the right Keynote. You're not right. Give me a green light. There we go. Oh, okay. We got a couple moments until we get started here. It's already top of the hour. It goes by fast. No, fusion power, fusion electricity, fusion. Look at the experiments over at the energy department. Just Google fusion or YouTube it because you'll get to see their press conference. It was pretty good, where they put 2 gigajoules into it and got 3 out. It was something ridiculous. Yeah, nuclear fusion. It was amazing. Plus, there were laser beams, and I'm all in for that. All right, everybody, let's finish that up. Oh, before we get really started, before we actually begin, before we've even done anything, Light PI with the $30 super chat. No specific comment, just throwing it out there. just coming right off the top rope. Thank you for that. We sure appreciate it. Thanks for your support. Thank you for doing what you're doing. We sure appreciate it. And what a good way to jump off and get things going on the study group. Let's do that right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2022 Professor Messer N10-008 study group. I'm your host, James Messer, and in this next hour, I will ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. And as we are stepping through all of those different parts of the exam objectives, I'm going to ask you questions, and you'll be able to answer them online automatically. You'll be able to see what's going on online, and I'll explain in a moment exactly how we make all of those things happen. Don't worry, I'll take you through the entire process. If you are here live, we would love it if you were able to join us and answer questions in real time. Obviously, if you're watching the replay, you won't be able to do this, but the way you would make this happen if you're here live is to pop open a new browser window and browse to this URL, professormesser.com/QA. I guess it would be good if I actually had something so you could see my mouse and the way that it was working. That's how these live streams usually work, though, isn't it? It's me clicking around until things finally work. And in this case, that is the way things should work. Go to professormesser.com/QA. You could also download an app for this called the Socrative Student app. That's the one you're looking for. If you use the app, it will ask you for a room name. The room name never changes, but you have to put it in. It is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. Make sure you spell it right, and you'll be in good shape. That's the way to do it. Now, if you do all of that, you visit either professormesser.com/QA or you open up the app and use room name Professor Messer, then you can obviously go through the process of watching me as I bring up some of these questions. There's a question waiting for you. This is a question from a couple of months ago. So this is what we call our rewind question to see how well you remember things and to make sure that Socrative is working properly and all of those. The question is, a recently installed firewall is estimated to be operational for 29 years. Which of the following would best describe this measurement? Would that be RTO, MTBF, AUP, RPO, or DLP? Now, if you know the answer, please don't answer in the chat room. You want to go to this link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. Yes, Socrative is named after, obviously, the philosopher Socrates. Socrates is who that's after. I can't wait. I can't wait for your cards and letters. We'll come back to that question in just a moment. First, let me thank you for being here. We can't do these live streams without you being here. I guess we could do the live streams, but they would be awfully boring if no one was here to answer the questions. And of course, we have a lot of other things going on throughout the entirety of what we do here. Of course, you can find all of our latest videos, including our free A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus training courses at professormesser.com/YouTube. We've also got daily pop quiz questions for A+ and weekly pop quiz questions for Network Plus and Security Plus at professormesser.com/Twitter and /Instagram. There's also other /things that you could do. We'll talk more about those in a moment. That's a great way to check in with us and see what's going on. And of course, if you are watching this, you're watching it on YouTube Live, we'd love it if you gave us a thumbs up. And now or at any time during this presentation, it's free and it really does help us quite a bit. So thanks for doing that. I also want to mention that all of the questions that we'll do today come from the latest version of the Network Plus exam. That is what's called versioning, the N10-008. That's the version of the exam number. It's the only one available currently. It was released on September the 15th of 2021, so just over a year old, which means it will probably retire somewhere around March of 2025. So what that means to you right now is as you are working on your Network Plus, you have plenty of time to be able to study everything you need to study without that exam going away. It's a single exam. It's 90 minutes long. You get a maximum of 90 questions. The score that you need to earn is a 720 on a scale from 100 to 900. Yeah, I don't understand it either, but that's what it is. They don't share with us their grading method. They don't share with us anything to do with the scoring. We have no idea how this works. All we know is if you work hard and you know everything on the exam and you answer the best you can do, hopefully your final score will come out to be a 720 or above. The exam itself is a multiple choice exam for the most part, but the first handful of questions you get on your exam will be what they call performance-based questions. And I'll talk to you about performance-based questions, and I have one for you that we'll do. The very first new question we'll do today will be a performance-based question. And of course, always, if you have not downloaded the exam objectives, they can be reached at professormesser.com/objectives. I also want to make you aware that each question on the exam is worth a different number of points. That's why we don't do percentages here. Percentages don't work. Percentages would work if every question was worth the same, but they're not. So you really don't have an idea of how much it takes to pass this exam. It's just a mystery to everyone. That's sort of the way it works for every industry certification exam, though. So this is nothing new or nothing different for those of you that have been doing this for a while. Of course, our entire Network Plus course is available for you to watch for free online. Watch as much as you would like. Watch it multiple times. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Of course, if you would like a downloadable version of this course, there is one available that comes with my course notes. It comes with my audio MP3s. It comes with downloadable videos and my exam hacks ebook and so much more. You can find out more about that on the website at professormesser.com/netsuccess. professormesser.com/netsuccess will take you there. I also want to let you know that there is a video replay of this live stream available immediately afterwards on YouTube. There is also an audio-only version of this available that I distribute in podcast form. You can find that at professormesser.com/podcast. It's a great way to listen in while you're working out, while you're driving, and maybe get a few extra tips of things that might be going through your mind during the exam. That's our goal here, is to give you some ideas around technologies and things that you might see on the exam itself. If you do come back and watch the video, you'll notice that there's a set of timestamps on the video. Those are put there manually by my marketing manager, Lori. Hey, Lori. She's watching this replay, probably at 2x speed, and going through and putting in all of those little timestamps. And she's been doing this literally for years. So you can go back quite a long way and find exactly what you're looking for in all of these live videos. I find that to be really useful. Hopefully it's something you like as well. And if it's something you like and something you use, feel free to say hi to Lori in the chat room. She watches the chat as it's going by because it shows a replay of the live stream chat as you're watching the live stream itself, almost like you're there. So that's another great service and something that can maybe help you find things just a little bit faster on your studies. When we're not here doing a live stream, we've got a Discord available. Go to professormesser.com/Discord. You can join us there. We talk all about Network Plus and A Plus and Security Plus and anything else, really. We've got plenty of channels there. A lot of people will show up and do study sessions online. It's a great way to do it. professormesser.com/Discord. We have such a great group there, such a nice community that's been built. Make sure you take advantage of that and maybe help you on your exam studies. Also want to let you know that eventually you will need to take your exam. Now, you can go out to the CompTIA website or the Pearson VUE website and pay full price to take the exam. But why would you do that? Why would you spend full price on an exam voucher when you can get the voucher at professormesser.com that is already discounted? You don't need a coupon code. You don't need a special passphrase. It's not behind a paywall. There's nothing extra that you have to load into a browser. I've never really understood any of that anyway. Why isn't it just the discounted price if you want to offer it at a discounted price? Well, that's the way it is out on professormesser.com/vouchers. Not only do we have discounted vouchers there for those of you in the U.S. or Canada and U.S. territories, but we also, since you're there and you're buying it and you've decided to purchase the voucher from my site, I'd love to also give you a copy of my Exam Hacks ebook for free. This is a set of tips and tricks that I've accumulated through the years that can help you with the study process. And I give you a few techniques that you can use during your exam that might earn you a few extra points. This could be the difference between passing and not passing. I don't sell the Exam Hacks ebook. You have to get it either with a voucher or with one of my success bundles. So one of the ways you can do that is to go to professormesser.com/vouchers. Get your voucher and you're ready to go. Something that might help you when you're ready to sit down and take this exam. Let's go back to that question I asked earlier. The question was, A recently installed firewall is estimated to be operational for 29 years. Which of the following would best describe this measurement? Is it RTO, MTBF, AUP, RPO, or DLP? There's a lot of abbreviations here. Let's see what you think the answer was. We look at the results. 57% of you said it's MTBF. That's almost exactly what it was 2 months ago. So we're either remembering everybody who got it right the first time got it right this time, or you guys are actually maybe a few points ahead. So maybe we did a little bit better than we did in October. Mean time between failures is how you would estimate the operational time frame of a particular device. This is not an unusual time frame. I actually grabbed the MTBF for Palo Alto Networks firewall that said it's 29 years. So, of course, anything can break with these devices. I happen to choose a firewall, though, that was all solid state. It didn't have fans. It didn't have a spinning hard drive. There was nothing in there that was a moving part. Everything was solid state, which means it was effectively all silicon. We don't have to worry about things breaking because they wear out. We have to worry about them breaking because the components themselves had some type of failure. So that number is not too far off the mark. It's ripped from the headlines. It's an actual MTBF or a firewall. The other options that are here, like RTO, RPO, those are also associated with getting things back up and running again. I'll have you go back to our previous October study group if you'd like more details on that. You could, of course, step through those sections of my course that deal with recovery, and it will tell you all about the recovery time objective. It will talk about a recovery point objective, and, of course, it talks about the mean time between failures and the mean time to repair. So we give you a breakdown in that video. This comes from my N10-008, section 3.3, under availability concepts, where I give you an idea of things you can do to properly determine when this particular problem might be resolved, when you might be up and running, how long it might take to repair or replace the thing that's there. All of this is nice to have, especially if you have some type of failure. So that is your answer. Answer B, the mean time between failures, is exactly what you were looking for. The only thing that wasn't on that slide was the AUP. If you have something like an acceptable use policy, then you have a set of documents that explains to people the acceptable use of the laptop, the tablet, the mobile phone in your organization. And of course, a data loss prevention, DLP, both of those have nothing to do with getting a device back up and running or how long it might be working. Data loss prevention is a technology that's looking for certain things to either be stored or sent across the network, and it can block some of those from happening. So that's a really good way to break down what that's going to be. That is our rewind question of the month. If you answered mean time between failures, the 59% of you got that one absolutely right. Now, for those of you in the chat room, you were mentioning, hey, I've got some other questions about other things as we go through. After this first hour, we have our after show for about an hour. Well, I'll take anything. Any questions you want to ask there would be a perfect time to do it. So make sure you make a note of what those questions are. Sometimes you forget once we're an hour into this. And I would absolutely go through the process of answering as many questions as I can in that after show. So more than happy to take those. Let's now do a performance-based question. I told you earlier that most of the exam is multiple choice questions, like the one we just had. That was a multiple choice-based question where you get a question and there's multiple choices. And even if you guess, you might get it right. We had a 20% chance of getting that one right, even if you didn't know what the answer was. Well, CompTIA wants to make it a little bit more difficult for you. So they want you to answer questions in a different way. And that is what the performance-based questions are about. That different way of answering questions are fill in the blank, putting things in a particular order, maybe from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. Maybe you were doing a drag and drop question. Maybe they put you to command line and asked you to perform a function. So these are different ways to ask you questions, but the content they're asking you is coming directly from the exam objectives. So as long as you know what's on the exam objectives, what I tell people is it really doesn't matter how they ask the question. If you know the content, you'll be able to answer the question without a problem. So that's what I would recommend you do as well. Now, I have for you today a performance-based question. This is more of a visual question. So for those of you that are on the podcast, you're probably going to want to take a break on this one, but I will be glad to show the rest of you. Here is your performance-based question of the month. I have 4 pictures on the screen, and I want you to match the name to the picture. So I was thinking of doing this one just as a fill in the blank, but I made it a little bit easier for you because it's the holidays. I was feeling jolly. So this one is where we would have to figure out what these 4 pictures happen to be. On the right side, I have a list of a lot of different technologies. So on the right side is SFP, ST, RJ45, DB9, F connector, BNC, LC, and RJ11. All of those are real things, by the way. I didn't make any of those up. So first thing you should do is go through that entire list. And if there's anything on that list that you don't immediately recognize and know what that should look like, you should make a note, because you might get questions about some of these things on your actual exam. Going back to what we're doing today, there are 4 pictures. So you should be able to match up those 4 pictures, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I have it as a fill in the blank online, but you can make it very easy. If you think it's 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, just put it in like that. That's not the right answer, by the way, but it should be very quick for you to be able to type that in and be able to work through it. That's what I would recommend. There are no letters to see online. It's all a fill in the blank. So just the 4 pictures is what you're looking at. You're looking for number 1. There's the 1. Number 2. There's the number 2. Number 3 and number 4. And there's all the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H on the right side. So I'm not sure which letters you might be looking for. There you go. So, okay. There's where it is. So that might be helpful. This would be good if you wanted to break this down and see how this works. If you are working through making, or at least working through the answer is a fill in the blank. It's not a matching on the answer side because the Socrative service doesn't have that. They only allow me to do a fill in the blank or a matching question or something that would be some an answer to a larger question that's in there. So see what you can do to put those in. A number of you have already answered the questions that are coming in. See how you do with that one. And you need to remember what you typed in, because Socrative doesn't tell you once you submit the answer. So feel free to put those in. See what you think the answers are for all 4 of what apparently are some type of networking technologies. Allegedly. That's on the screen. Now I'm looking at this list. I have 3 of 4 of those in my studio right now. So those aren't pictures from my studio, but I do have all 4 of those in my studio, or 3 of those in my studio. The 4th one I actually do have, but it's not active in my studio right now. So let's see how you did with this one. And being able to recognize these technologies is really useful, because you will be in situations where people will tell you, hey, we need another one of these cables, or we need to connect this device to that device. What do we need? And then it's up to you to get exactly the right specifications together, submit those so that your company can then purchase those. That is probably one of the most common things you'll run into. Or you have these new devices and you're probably trying to connect devices together in a lab, in a production scenario. So you may have to find some of these, especially if you're someone who has got a box full of cables and you need to figure out where's the 2 cables, the 2 ends of the cable I need. You'll need to be able to recognize, or at least ask somebody else, hey, have you seen the SFP, ST, RJ45, DB9, F connector, BNC, LC, or RJ11 connector anywhere? Because I have a cable. I need a cable that has those on it. See what you think the answers might be. As always, if you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll have to figure out what you did with this one and how well it worked. Let's step through all 4 of these pictures and see what I think the answer is. And we'll see if it matches what you think the answer is. Let's start with the very first one on the upper left. It's this white cable with this connector on the end that apparently it's like it has a piece of copper in the middle, and then there is sort of a screw-in type of connection on the end. Well, that is the typical F connector. We do have a cable modem here. So we are in a cable modem, cable broadband network, technically using the broadband in the appropriate way. It is a broadband network because there are multiple frequencies running over that single cable, and that is an F connector. So named because there was a D connector and a G connector, but those didn't catch. They just didn't catch on. Literally, it was named F because that happened to be the next number and next letter that was in order, and that's the one that everybody sort of decided would be the connection we would use for these coaxial cables. So that's what you commonly see on a cable modem or a cable television network, is that type of connection coming in and plugging into your modem, which is probably more accurate to say a CSU DSU, but it is what we're calling a cable modem. Next on our list, we'll move to the right. Number 2, that looks like fiber, doesn't it? It certainly is. There are a few fiber type options on the list, but this type of fiber is an LC fiber. Lucent connector is one of the many terms that are used for LC, but we don't generally call them by the name. We don't usually say, hey, in your box of fiber, do you have a Lucent connector? Do you have that in there? We just say, I need an LC. Do you have an LC in there? I need one of those. So that's certainly a good way to get the cable up. I have a lot of fiber here, but I don't have any LC connectors on any of the equipment that I'm using today. So that's the one component in my studio that I have in a box that I'm just not using as an active piece of technology in the studio. Interestingly enough, most of the connections for audio and video in my studio are actually a picture I don't have here, which are BNC. If you don't know what BNC looks like, make sure you go back and look at the video for these connector types. So I use I shouldn't say no fiber in the studio. There are places where there is fiber I could use, but it's not LC for this. So it just happens to be that's what we're running. Most everything we have here in copper, it's just so much easier to do that. Copper's, you can run pretty much anything on copper now, and I don't need speeds up to over 10 gig. 10 gig is what I'm shooting for, and you can do plenty of 10 gig on copper, so that's what I'm doing. Next on our list, this third picture, we've got this one here. Now, these are a little odd looking. These are two separate devices, two separate components that we have here. Those are the SFPs, small form factor pluggable devices. They're not so small. We've even got them a little smaller these days, but that's about right. They allow for modularity in switches. I have a 10 gig switch back in the data center, which is a closet that's over here. The 10 gig switch has a number of RJ45 connectors built into it for running 10 gig over copper. But then I've also got a number of interfaces that are SFP interfaces where I can put in my own interface. So if I did want to run single mode or multi-mode fiber, I could do that, or even copper. There are copper SFPs as well. I could decide what type of interface I want on that link. So SFP is what you might find on a switch or router or some other type of infrastructure device. Becomes very useful to have. The last one on our list, I would think almost everybody got this one. This is the end of an Ethernet cable. You can, if you look closely, see all 8 of those pins, all 8 of the wires that are inside of this device that have been crimped down. And that would be obviously an RJ45. RJ45 is what you would use for that one. So that's where, if you're plugging in copper Ethernet, that's probably what you're using, is an RJ45 connector. Becomes handy. SFPs have a lot of different types. There are a lot of different types of SFP. If you're running 10 gig networks, you may be running SFP with copper, a twisted pair. It might be fiber-based. It could be coax. There are coax SFPs. So you never know what you might want to use or what you might have to use depending on what you've got in your data center. So those are the 4 answers we're looking for. We've got F connector, an LC fiber connection, SFP, and RJ45. These are very useful things to know, by the way, not just for the exam, but if you're in the data center, and I love walking through data centers. It was sort of the fun part of when I used to be a systems engineer, is I'd go meet with a customer, and the customers would say, would you like a tour of the data center? And then before they finish saying, they go, yes, I would. I want to walk around and see equipment. I want to see the blinky lights. It's always interesting to see the different data centers and what people have, and then to see what they're running in each rack and how they're connected together. I have so many questions about those. Some data centers I've been in have been amazing. You could eat off the floor. They were fantastic. Some data centers I'm in, we're stepping over old CRTs. You know, there's a technician that's taking a nap on the floor. Everybody has a different style, but everything was still running. So really can't complain. It's just a different corporate culture, depending on where you might be. So knowing those pictures and what they are associated with become very, very important. Make sure you're familiar not only with the pictures that are here, but with all of those that I put into my videos. Hopefully that's helped you for your performance-based question. Not so hard. One of those. This is very typical. I think a lot of people get worried that performance-based questions are going to be very involved. They'll be very complex. There's a lot of nuance to them. In reality, there isn't. It's pretty straightforward. We don't have a lot of time on these exams, and so we want to be able to get the question in, get you answering the question, then off to the next one. And I think this is a good example of that. Yeah, if you are searching data center videos on YouTube, there's a great one that was done by Google where they took you around a data center. In fact, they have not just a video that takes you through their data center. They also have on one of their Google Maps where you can walk through the data center. Sort of like the street view, it's sort of a data center view. And you can walk through the different aisles and see what's going on. Pretty interesting to have that there. Let's shift gears now back to a multiple choice based question. Here is your next question on the list. It asks, a router is configured with multiple routes to a destination subnet. Which of the following would determine which route has priority? Would that be the administrative distance, traffic shaping, next hop, default route, or network utilization? A router is configured with multiple routes to a destination subnet. Which of the following would determine which route has priority? Would that be administrative distance, traffic shaping, next hop, default route, or network utilization? And of course, if you know the answer, please no answers in the chat room. You want to go to the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA, to lock in your answer. That's where you want to be. See how you do with that particular question. For those of you asking in the chat room, hey, can I ask an A-plus question? You absolutely can in the after show. Wait till we're done here in this first hour, which we're halfway through already. And I'll be glad to take any questions you would like in that second hour. Stick around for that. Should be pretty good to have both of those there. No worries. We appreciate you being here and participating. So we're all here for the first time at some point anyway. We'll figure it out as we go along. Nobody's going to get angry or upset at people trying to learn. So we're here to make all of this happen for you. This is a good question because it's one that not just could come up on Network Plus, but as you go through your career, especially if you get into network administration, you will run into this scenario often where you will look at a routing table and you will see multiple routes on the routing table that go to exactly the same place. And you may be wondering to yourself, well, how does the router know where to send this traffic? Oh, we're about to find out. We will know shortly if you answer this question right, because that is a key to routing. In fact, it may be something you specifically designed into your network to have multiple routes. That redundancy is fantastic, and being able to work through it. So see if you're familiar with what these might be. Let's see how you answered this question, though. The question again asked, a router is configured with multiple routes to a destination subnet. Which of the following would determine which route has priority? So you might have a router, it has multiple routes. One of those routes says you go out that interface. The other route says you go out that interface. Well, which one do you use? Let's see what you think the answer is. We'll show the results. I've got 29% say administrative distance. Look at this. These are all double digits that are all very close to each other. 29% say administrative distance. 21% say the default route. 18% said traffic shaping. 16% said next hop, and then network utilization at 15%. So we've got a relatively strong 31% as the, not a majority, but a plurality of this one. This is also one that, as you step through, 22% saying default route right behind it, and then almost a three-way tie for third. So the real question is, you get into this scenario where there are multiple hops, especially if you're running multiple routing protocols, multiple interfaces on the router. How do you figure this out? Well, you would use an administrative distance. So especially if you've got two routing protocols coming into the router interprets those routing protocols, puts them into a routing table, and then realizes, wait, we've got the same route due to two different interfaces. How do we compare those? How do we choose between one or the other? Well, the way you would choose is it's not obvious. It's not something that you would know looking at the router itself. You should already have taken your Network Plus exam, and you already know that there are a set of predefined administrative distances. These are effectively a tiebreaker. These is what you go to. If there's a tie, we go to the judges, and the judges have this administrative distance built into them. The router knows about these administrative distances, and the router knows if it's something that is directly connected to the router, its administrative distance is 0. That means it has the highest priority. If it is directly connected, we're obviously going to take the directly connected link. Maybe we define a static route. We aren't using dynamic routing. We're not using OSPF. We're not using EIGRP or RIP. We are instead putting our own routes in the router. And the router says, well, if you're putting a route in, it must be pretty important. It must be pretty specific. So if it's something that's in your router, we'll give it an administrative distance of 1. If you've found this particular route using EIGRP, the administrative distance is 90. OSPF has an admin distance of 110, and so on and so forth. The router will look through all of these administrative distances or look through all of these routes and see how the route was first determined, apply the administrative distance to it, and the lowest distance wins. So if there is two routes, one of them was acquired using EIGRP and the other one was acquired using OSPF, the router will look at both of those and say, well, I like EIGRP better. It has a lower administrative distance. I don't know if it likes it better or not, but that's how the distances are set up, and it would choose the EIGRP link over the OSPF link. Now, those are the default administrative distances. Those can, of course, be modified and changed and updated. We don't generally do that because all that does is create more complexity and challenges everyone to remember what we might have set them to. So instead, we work with these administrative distances to make sure that we're setting the right routes. Now, why would we do that? Why would we create two routes to the same place? Well, we would do that in case one of them disappeared. So let's say we had two routes going to exactly the same IP subnet. One we acquired through EIGRP, we go to the left. One we acquired through OSPF, we go to the right. Well, as it turns out, EIGRP has the lower administrative distance, we go out that link. But what happens if the EIGRP connection fails? What if the link is disconnected? What if that link is no longer available? What if that connection is suddenly not available? Well, then we've got an extra redundant link. And even though the administrative distance is 110, because the EIGRP link went away, it gets taken out of the routing table, and now we take the route that's left. So even though OSPF would be a larger administrative distance, we no longer have the EIGRP to deal with. So that's one of the nice parts about using administrative distance, to be able to create a redundant environment, which if you ever work with a wide area network or even some very complex local area networks, will be very, very important to you. That was the right answer. Administrative distance, 33% of you did answer A, and that was the right answer. 21% of you said default route. A default route, at least in the perspective of a router, is a single route that it takes if no other route inside of the device matches. So if it goes through the entire routing table and the destination is not listed in the routing table, it takes the default route. But that wasn't our scenario. Our scenario was a router had multiple routes, so it would never get to a default route to be able to do that. So that's why default route would not be the answer we were looking for here. 16% of you said traffic shaping. Traffic shaping is used to define the priorities that certain applications have over others. Traffic shaping in and of itself do not determine what route a particular packet takes. It instead is setting priorities on the traffic going over those links. The routing tables are the ones that determine where the particular route is going to go outside of this router. And then we've got 15% that say next hop. A next hop is obviously the hop that it goes to next. In fact, that's our problem here, is that one route has a next hop. The other route, which is identical, has a different next hop. It's going to different places. In here, we're trying to determine which route is priority, not which route would be followed next. So in this case, next hop is not our right answer. And obviously, network utilization determines how busy a network happens to be. And although there are routing protocols that take the utilization of the network into account, we don't generally use those widely. But in this case, we already have multiple routes. We're not trying to determine multiple routes. The only answer here that makes any sense, the one you should have chosen, is indeed answer A, administrative distance. Let's do another question. Since we're on the talking about administration, this is a pretty good administration question. This next one asks, a network administrator has received this message, quote, interface down, port 0/3 on router 7, end quote. Which of the following is providing this information? Is it TLS, ICMP, SMB, SNMP, or MySQL? Got 5 options there. A network administrator has received this message, quote, interface down, port 0/3 on router 7. Which of the following is providing this information? Is it TLS, ICMP, SMB, SNMP, or MySQL? Do you know the answer? Please don't answer in the chat room. Instead, use that link that's right in front of you, professormesser.com/QA, and lock in your answer. It's got to be one of those, right? All of those are, again, real things. They are all from the Network Plus exam objectives. So again, if you don't recognize any of those, make a note, write it in your notepad, put it down on a piece of paper, lock it into your OneNote or whatever you're using. And so you can go back later and think, what was he talking about? TLS, ICMP, SMB, SNMP, or MySQL. You do need to know what these things are and how you would use them. When I say the exam objectives want you to know what these things are, they're not necessarily asking you what do those letters stand for, which sometimes can help you understand what that happens to be. But you will not get a question on your exam that says, what does TLS stand for? They will never ask you this. They'll instead say, here's a scenario where we're using TLS or we need to use TLS, or an example like this where you've received a message, what's giving you that message? That's more of a exam type question. And that's why I usually have the questions set up in this way, because you have to go a couple of steps to finally get to the answer. You will never get a trivia question on your exam. What does ICMP stand for? They will never ask you that. So if you're spending a lot of time with a flashcard thinking TLS is this, ICMP is this, SMB is it, I won't say you're wasting your time, but it has limited value. You should instead be saying, here's TLS. Oh, what is that? And when would you use it? Can be helpful. It's sometimes useful to know what the acronyms are, but sometimes they don't help you at all know what they happen to be. We'll even go through this in a moment. Let's see how you answered this one. A network administrators received the message, interface down, port 0/3 on router 7. Which of the following is providing this information? Is it TLS, ICMP, SMB, SNMP, or MySQL? 68% of you say it's SNMP is what we would be looking for. Certainly a majority, but 20% of you say, oh, that's ICMP. That's what would give you that information. 8% say it's SMB, 3% say it's MySQL, and then 1% say TLS. After I talked about TLS all that time, hardly anyone chose that as their answer. Or if you're getting a message that says, I'm a router and a port just went down, it's likely that that message was sent to you as an SNMP trap. SNMP, of course, stands for the Simple Network Management Protocol. Even that name kind of tells you what it does, but it doesn't give you a lot of detail on what that does. So the Simple Network Management Protocol, if you're going to be a network administrator, you will use SNMP quite a bit. You'll set up a management station, and you'll have this device constantly poll devices to know if they're up or down, and you'll probably configure those devices to send alarms and alerts, which in the SNMP world is what we call traps, I don't know why, but that's what they call it. And that's what is sent to you without you having to pull the device. SNMP commonly uses UDP port 162 for those traps, uses UDP port 161 to do queries to pull a device. And then if the device is sending you information without a pull, that would be a trap, an alarm, an alert that sends it over UDP 162. And depending on the management station you're using, it would be a lot of different things that you can do to be able to set up that device to receive the traps from routers, switches, servers, firewalls, and other devices on your network. Almost any infrastructure device will support SNMP to some level. So it's a great thing to become familiar with. You're going to use it a lot if you get into network management of any kind. It's very valuable, can help you quite a bit to be able to do that. So SNMP is indeed the right answer. 68% of you did choose D, SNMP, and that is the answer we were looking for. ICMP is certainly a valuable management protocol. All happens behind the scenes. If you're pinging a device, for example, you're using a type of SNMP, which is an SNMP echo request and an ICMP echo request and ICMP echo response. There's other ICMP functions that you will find on your network as well. Some that can occur occasionally, some you will rarely see on a network. But ICMP is more of a higher level, network level informational protocol. It's not one that deals with operations of a specific router or switch or firewall or server. So that's why ICMP in this particular case would not be the protocol that we are looking for. 7% of you said SMB. This is one of those abbreviations that knowing the abbreviation doesn't help you very much, because SMB stands for Server Message Block. It could be a server, and probably it might not even be a server that's using this. So the server part doesn't make sense. Message, is it sending a message? It's not a messaging protocol. Really, we think of messaging as a text message or a direct message, a tweet. No, this has nothing to do with that. The M for message in this has nothing to do with those things. And then block, what kind of block? You mean like a concrete block? You mean like a block of data? That's the only thing that sort of helps a little bit with this SMB. But what that doesn't tell you is that, oh, that's the protocol that Windows uses to transfer files between devices or to send printers to print jobs to a print server, very commonly used to send data back and forth between Windows devices. So that's a really good example of how SMB doesn't necessarily, knowing the term SMB and knowing what the SMB stands for may not necessarily help you on an exam. It's a good example of where the flashcard doesn't have a lot of value. 3% of you said MySQL, which is a database protocol / software platform. MySQL, incredibly useful for storing data. If you are on the Professor Messer website right now, all of that data is being stored in a MySQL database, for example. And then lastly, TLS, it's the modern term for SSL, even though we still use SSL to describe TLS. I know it's confusing, but that's how the industry tends to work. The transport layer security that you have in TLS is the newest, latest, most modern version of what we used to call SSL. The SSL the problem is that when we talk about TLS these days, we often refer to it as SSL. That's how those old terms just tend to not go away. Plus, SSL is so easy to say. Have you configured the SSL cert? Do we have the SSL certificate? I'm having a problem with the SSL. But whenever we say that these days, we really know when we're telling someone this, and they really understand when they hear it, we're really talking about transport layer security, or TLS. So that's why TLS is preferred if you're being accurate. But if you're just talking to folks in a more of a colloquial term, it's SSL. When we say, oh, we're dealing with the encryption to the website, I need to fix the SSL cert that's on there. That's what we're talking about. That's one you have to kind of think about if you're ever plugging in and connecting something that uses TLS. Make sure you're very specific, especially if you get in a situation of, I get these emails from you. I know that you just hate the idea that people are using SSL when it's not actually SSL. Well, it's not. You're not necessarily wrong. Being accurate with these things, especially in your documentation, can be very important. So make sure you're using the right terms when you do that. The answer here, of course, was the Simple Network Management Protocol, SNMP, and 68% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done. As you can already tell, there are so many different abbreviations. I think the Network Plus probably is the most number of abbreviations and acronyms and things you have to memorize like that than any other A+ or Security Plus exam. And what I've tried to do, obviously, is to put all of this into my videos. But not everybody has time to go through 93 videos, which is how many videos are in the Network Plus course. There's over 14 hours of content. You know, people tend to go to a video that describes the thing they need to learn, but they may not have time to go through all of these. Well, one of the things I've done is I have gone through all of these many times, obviously. And one of the things that I've tried to do is to put all of this into one single document. These are my course notes. They are available in a PDF form. They are also available in a physical printed version. They are identical, of course, to each other. Full color, nice heavy pages. This is high quality with a perfect bound document here. So I can ship that to you in this physical form, or maybe you just need a PDF. PDF, as I mentioned, has exactly the same content as the other, has all of the text, all of the great graphics, all of the charts, everything that's in my video that's going to help you pass this exam is in my set of course notes. They're available on my website. You can find out more about those at professormesser.com/NPCN. It is a great way to support what we do on the site as well. Every dollar spent here goes right back into keeping this whole thing going. We appreciate you keeping the lights on and allowing us to bring these videos to you. We'll keep making them until you tell us to stop, which thankfully has not happened yet. We'll just keep doing it over and over. Those course notes, many people use them. If you purchase the physical course notes and you're waiting for that shipment, I'll let you know you get the digital version for free. So even though you buy it and you have to wait on the delivery, you at least have the digital versions that you can download immediately and start using them, put them on all your devices. So wherever you happen to be, you'll be able to reference your Network Plus content. Let's do some more questions. We hope you get over and check things out on our site so that you know where to go with some of these. But I will, of course, I've got more questions here that we can go through. Let's do another one. The next question on our list is this. A help desk technician on a Windows 10 computer is controlling the desktop of a Mac OS system. Which of the following is the technician using? Is it SSH, VNC, clientless VPN, out-of-band management, or RDP? A help desk technician on a Windows 10 computer is controlling the desktop of a Mac OS system. Which of the following is the technician using? Are they using SSH, VNC, clientless VPN, out-of-band management, or RDP? You think you know the answer? Use that link on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. I do want to thank John in the chat room with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that. We don't no particular message or question on that one. Just $5. Keep the party going. Keep the lights on, and having all of those there. Hopefully you're familiar with some of these. All of these answers, again, come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. So if you see an answer there, you're not familiar with it enough, maybe you feel like you can't explain that answer to someone else, there's a great way to test yourself. If you can explain that to a mirror, or you can explain it to somebody who's next to you in the room, then you probably have learned that one pretty well. But if you're looking through this list and you think, I can't explain what that technology is to someone else, it's time to study a little bit more. We need to circle that one, come back to it, circle back and see if you can spend a little more study time on that technology. Even though I'm giving you this information with this particular answer to this particular question, any one of these technologies could appear in your exam. So it's important that you know what all of these happen to be. So make sure you step through those. Let's see how you're doing. I'm waiting for a few more people to stop Googling. No more Googling. Don't stop Googling the answer. It's not there, because I write all of these questions new every month. So nobody's seen these questions before. So we'll have to figure all of these out. See if you can take a guess. We're in the room. There's no Google available to you in the room. You can't bring your notes in with you. You have to guess take a stab, just see which one of these it might happen to be. And that would be a great way to see how you did. Let's see, in fact, what everyone answered on this one. The question again, a help desk technician on a Windows 10 computer is controlling the desktop of a Mac OS system. Which of the following is the technician using? Is it SSH, VNC, clientless VPN, out-of-band management, or RDP? And what did you answer? Let's find out. We have 46% of us say it's VNC. We have 39% of us that say it's RDP. We've got 11% that say SSH, 3% that say out-of-band management, and 0% say clientless VPN. So we're a little torn here, obviously, between VNC and RDP. So if we're working through the idea of connecting from Windows, but controlling the desktop of Mac OS, is that even possible? Of course it's possible. So that's where you would, of course, go to have this remote control of that device. There's obviously different ways to perform this remote control and different protocols that can make this happen. If you're on a Microsoft device or you are connecting to the screen, the remote device is a Microsoft device, then you're probably using Microsoft's Remote Desktop Protocol, or RDP. That's if you're connecting to Windows. In this case, that wasn't the question. The question was a Windows person connecting to Mac OS, and as you can probably guess, especially when you're dealing with anything Windows or Mac OS related, a Windows device and Mac OS are not going to have compatible technologies. So RDP would not be used on Mac OS. We've got VNC, however, that is used on Mac OS. This is a sort of an open source version of a remote desktop technology. It's built in to Mac OS. It's one that is available right out of the box. All you have to do is in the sharing section of Mac OS say, yes, I need remote access to this device, and it automatically enables the ability for anyone with a VNC client to connect to that remote desktop service on your Mac OS, which behind the scenes is actually VNC, the virtual network computing. And for those of you in the chat room go, yeah, I do this all the time. I do it in tech support. I'm on the help desk. We have to connect to other people's machines. That's exactly what you would use. You probably are using one or both of these to be able to make that happen, depending on what type of end stations you have in your network. Very useful. So let's see all of the answers you gave here. Obviously, VNC did win by about 5 points. 45% of you said VNC. That was the right answer. That's what you can use to directly connect to and control the desktop of a Mac OS device, regardless of what you're connecting from. RDP, as I mentioned earlier, is a Windows-only technology, the Remote Desktop Protocol. So although you could use it to connect to a Windows device, you would not be using RDP to connect to a Mac OS device. That won't work. So not going to be answer E in this particular case. 12% of you said SSH. SSH is obviously a terminal screen that you can use to connect to many different kinds of devices. If there's an SSH server running, you can connect to an SSH terminal that is on Windows, Mac OS, Linux, and other operating systems as well. You would simply need to enable that service on your computer, and people would be able to connect into a terminal prompt on that machine. But as the question asked, we weren't talking about a terminal prompt. This question said the help desk technician is controlling the desktop. So we were very specific as to what that technician was doing. And although SSH is a fantastic protocol that allows us to connect in and use that terminal of that remote device, it doesn't allow us to control a desktop. So SSH would not be the right answer that we would choose. 3% said out-of-band management, which describes how you are connecting to the device, not what you are using to connect to the device. This could be a scenario where you normally have an internet connection going into a site and suddenly the internet connection fails. Oh, well, how do I get into that site and be able to connect to a desktop, SSH into a device, or manage the devices that are on that network? How can I gain more information about the outage? If you've already predefined an out-of-band connection, you might be connecting over a modem line, an old traditional POTS line, the plain old telephone system. You might have maybe you have a DSL connection on the back end. If you're paying very little, maybe you're only paying $50 a month, but now you've got this extra connection. So if my primary internet goes out, I can use this out-of-band connection that's not used for anything else. It's not in-band. It's not your normal communication. It's out-of-band that's specifically designed for you, the technician, to be able to get into that device and be able to work with it. So that's what you would use. And nobody said clientless VPN. Clientless VPN obviously is a way to connect to the network over a VPN, a virtual private network encrypted channel, but you don't have to load any software on your machine for this to work. It's clientless, something that's built into the browser itself. So that is what we're looking for, is to have some way for this Windows 10 device to connect to that Mac OS. The best way to do it, given these 5 options, the only way to do it, given these 5 options, is through VNC. That's what we were looking for, and 45% of you got that one absolutely right. Before we go any further, I want to thank Aaron in the chat room with the $10 super chat. Aaron says, just passed Network Plus a few hours ago. Congratulations on your brand new Network Plus. Aaron says, thanks so much for these groups, Professor. Aaron, thank you for that super chat. We sure appreciate your support. Congratulations on your new Network Plus. And I think we want to know what's next for you. What's the next thing you're doing? Are you getting the Network Plus to do a particular thing, or is this a stepping stone towards getting something else that you're working on? Either way, thank you, of course, for the super chat, and congratulations on your new Network Plus. Let's do another question. I know we're at the top of the hour. Let's do another question. We can fit another one in, right? I think we can. This question asks, an administrator's troubleshooting an application slowdown issue. Which of the following would capture the network traffic used by the application? Would that be ifconfig, TCP dump, netstat, nmap, or dig? An administrator is troubleshooting an application slowdown issue. Which of the following would capture the network traffic used by the application? Is it ifconfig, TCP dump, netstat, nmap, or dig? If you think you know the answer, go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in your answer. See what you think the answer is. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll figure out what we do next. Right there is your 5 options. All 5 of those are directly associated with the CompTIA exam objectives. Make sure you're familiar with them. That will help you maybe narrow this answer down a little bit if you're familiar with all 5. Sometimes you know the answer, but sometimes you have to get rid of the other answers to really narrow down what the right one might be. So maybe this can help you with your narrowing down process to figure out what you happen to do next with this one. Again, your answers are where you submit the answer is that link that's on your screen. Go to professormesser.com/QA and lock in what you think that answer might be. This one, I think, absolutely can give you information of what you're looking for, but there's really only one good answer here. Folks in the chat room are pondering, is there more than one answer? Could there be more than one of these? No. In this case, it's not even one of these questions that asks what the best answer might be. It really is one specific answer that's associated with this one. So, of course, I would recommend having a look at these. And we'll break down all 5 so you know exactly which ones it could be, it could not be. Is it work this way? Does it not work that way? We'll figure it out as we go through the specifics. See if you're familiar with this. And by the way, if you have anything to do with networking, you will be troubleshooting application slowdown problems a lot. Are these application slowdown problems associated with the network? No, they're not. They're associated with the application server or the application that was written. It's always an application issue. It's always something on the application side. But the application folks have no idea how the network works. It's a mystery. It's magic. There's some type of elven magic going on underneath the cable. They're not really sure how data gets from one end of the country to the other. Nobody knows except the network people. And they think that if there's a problem, well, the problem has to be with the thing we know nothing about. So let's get the network people to fix the application slowdown problem. Except the network people will look at their connections and say, there's low utilization, there's no errors, the traffic is flowing exactly as fast as it can flow across that connection. there's not a slowdown problem on the network. The problem is with your application. So that's one that if you get into networking, don't be frustrated by this. As it sounds like it would be very frustrating. If you allow it to be, it can be very frustrating. But I will tell you, there's a lot of job security in troubleshooting application problems. And if you're doing this and become very good at it, it becomes very easy to capture the packets, show the packet data, show exactly what the numbers are, and then show them how it can't be the network, that it actually is the application. I've done a lot of these. That's how it always works. I need a t-shirt that says it's not the network, because that's what you end up saying over and over and over again. Let's see how you did with this one. The question asked, an administrator is troubleshooting the application slowdown issue. It should say a network administrator is trying to fix the problems created by the application team. But I was trying to be a little more politically correct. Which of the following would capture the network traffic used by the application? Would that be ifconfig, TCP dump, netstat, nmap, or dig? I can dig it, but not in this particular example. 49% of you say it is TCP dump that you would use. 34% say netstat is what you would use. 11% said nmap. 6% said dig, and 1% said ifconfig. This did not go the direction I thought it was going to go. 50% now say it's TCP dump. If we went with we'll say it's 50.1%, so we can say that's the majority. So that group of people that said TCP dump would be spot on. This is how you would capture packets directly from the command line. Let's say you don't have a graphical front end to run Wireshark, or you don't have a standalone protocol analyzer. You can simply use TCP dump to capture the data. And if you wanted to, you could, of course, take that data and load it into Wireshark or another protocol analyzer to provide even more information about the data that's going over that link. TCP dump is available in practically any operating system. It is something that you can either capture everything on the network, or you could say only capture data going back and forth to this MAC address or this IP address or this particular application. You can do all of those things. It's all in there. And of course, as I mentioned, you could save these packets so that you can, of course, show the application people, you see this right here? Talk to the packets. That's what we're seeing. Everything's running fine, except your request goes into the database server. It stays in the database server for 63 seconds, and then finally a response is sent back. So if you're asking, why is it taking a minute to complete this transaction, you should go talk to the database people to find out why. Because while that 63 seconds is going by, nothing is going across the network. It can't be slow because you're not using it, is usually how these answers turn out. The one thing I will tell you, and I mentioned this in my video 5.3 command line tools specific to TCP dump, is there's a lot of data that's going by. If you're ever in this scenario where you are trying desperately to view this information that's on your screen, there's a lot of data that's going by on your screen. So I would, of course, tell you, make sure you're familiar with how to set these filters or have enough storage that you can collect all this data, because you might need that later on. Here's a screenshot, for example, of just a quick TCP dump. Each one of those lines is a separate frame. In this particular view, it's a separate packet. Same idea, though. We're able to take that data and dump it into a file. That's why it's called TCP dump. And although it's TCP dump, it can capture anything. It can capture just the raw Ethernet frames. It can capture raw wireless frames, things you don't even see with MAC addresses. But of course, it's just a nifty name, TCP dump. That's the correct answer. TCP dump is what we were looking for. 50% of you chose that one. Absolutely correct. That's really the only answer here that makes any sense whatsoever. Although 33%, a third of you say netstat is what you would use. I don't have netstat up right now to be able to show you any data from that, but although netstat can tell you a lot of information about who's connecting to your device, who your device is connecting to, tell you a lot of information about routes and other things, more statistical breakdowns, analytics about the conversation, netstat doesn't capture raw data. It doesn't capture the network traffic itself. It doesn't show us data that is the MAC addresses, the IP part, the TCP or UDP header, all the data within all of those. It doesn't do that. It doesn't capture packets to a file. TCP dump is specifically designed to do that. NetStat gives you an overview that, yes, indeed, these two devices are talking to each other, but it doesn't tell you what they're saying. That's the difference. That's the breakdown. Sort of like NetStat is the metadata, TCP dump is the raw data, if you want to look at it that way too. We also have Nmap is the one that I thought most people would say, I could do this either way, because there are some very limited packet capture capabilities built into Nmap. So if you're running a trace or you're performing a function within Nmap, you can have it save that packet capture so you can see what happened during that particular Nmap conversation. But that's for that specific Nmap function. Nmap is not designed to capture traffic going back and forth from an application to a server. That's not going to help you either, and being able to break those down. And then Dig. Dig is great for being able to query a name server and be able to provide resolution either with an IP address to a name or a name to an IP address or anything else that may be in that name server for DNS. But Dig does not capture traffic that was created by an application and store that data for analysis. So that's what you would use. And lastly, ifconfig, a great utility to be able to see the interface configuration of a device in Linux or Mac OS. But ifconfig does not help you very much in any other way. The real question, some people were saying, well, where can I use TCP dump? Practically any operating system. There's TCP dump functions that generally we think of it as a Unix or Linux function. Of course, it's available in Mac OS, and there are Windows flavors of this available as well. With Windows, it's WinDump is what you want to look for. It's another build or a type of TCP dump that's been created specifically for the Windows operating system. And of course, if you're on Windows, there's also Wireshark. And if you haven't used it already, really interesting. I'm sort of a packet geek, but when you get down to it, there's also a command line version of Wireshark. So instead of using TCP dump, if you're on Windows, you might want to try the Wireshark command line that has some nice functionality as well. So that's what I would recommend. So somehow it's like the Matrix, though. You're sort of looking at this screen full of what looks like noise, but if you know what to look for, suddenly everything comes together. You can really watch what's happening. And we used to just set it running and to watch the data as it's going by. And you do sort of see a trend of things. You sort of get familiar with the pulse of your network. And when things start going wrong, when something is unusual, it's remarkable how quickly your eyes can see it. And you can jump to that part of the packet capture and say, well, that looks different. What's going on there? So that's what I would recommend you do as well. For those of you that were looking for the right answer, TCP dump was our right answer. 51% of you got that one absolutely right. That is the correct answer. If you're watching this video for continuing education unit credit, I would love to send you an email that grants you a 1-hour certificate of webinar category CEU. Those are continuing education unit credits. The way that you do this is you have to follow these instructions. You have to go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click the Contact Us link. It will pop open a form. In that form, put your name, your email address, which is important because I'm sending you back an email. And then in the subject line, put December 2022 Network Plus or Network Plus Study Group or something that I can recognize where this came from. And then in the body of the message, put the super secret code word of the month, TCP dump. We'll just use the right answer for this one. TCP dump is the super secret code word of the month. Put that on a line by itself. And then if you wanted to put other information in there, feel free to put any other comments. I read through every single one of these that comes through. I'm unfortunately not able to respond back to all of these because I get a lot of these in a month. So please, if you want to put those too, I love reading them. I love going through them. So if you want to put anything else in there, I'm more than happy to have a look and see what's there. So again, top or bottom of the website, click Contact Us, fill out that form with subject line, a line by itself, put the super secret code word of the month, TCP dump. Almost forgot it. That's what it was, TCP dump, and then send that to me. It takes me about a week to turn these around. Usually it's on a weekend or some other time, and then you'll get an email from me that says, this email certifies that you must have watched an hour because you knew the super secret code word of the month, and you're more than happy if you're someone who isn't even sure what that is, what's a CEU and when would you use this, that's okay. that means this doesn't apply to you. But if you've already earned your certification and you're trying to find a way to renew, that's what you would use these for. So maybe that can help you as well. All the information we went through today all came from the CompTIA exam objectives. You should get these objectives right now if you don't have them already. Open up a new browser window, go to that link, professormesser.com/objectives. There's a link there that will take you over to the CompTIA website. When you get there, you fill in some information, and then you're able to download these objective sheets. They tell you everything that's going to be on the exam. This is something you don't find from Microsoft. Cisco doesn't do this. VMware doesn't do this. Red Hat doesn't do this. This is a very unusual way to do certifications because they effectively tell you everything you need to know, but then you're the one that needs to learn it. So the other thing I'll tell you that if you stick to the objectives, then you will find that you will pass this exam without any problem. If you know everything that's listed in those objectives, I think you're going to do just fine with what's there. So have a look at those, be familiar with them. That probably should be the first thing you study and the last thing you study. It's a great way to tell where should I start my studies, and it's also a good way to tell, have I studied everything? So that is what you would do. Follow that process. I think you'll be very good with that. I know other certifications just give you a one-page, very high-level outline. Microsoft does this. What do I need to know? You need to know what is Windows 10 and how does it work? That's kind of the details they give you. They don't give you breakouts of every single Windows 10 or Windows 11 program you need to know. But CompTIA does, thankfully. It makes it so much easier. Make sure you get your hands on those objectives. They're so important. We'd love for you to stop by next week. A week from today, we're doing our last live stream of the year. It's our Security Plus study group. If you're interested in security or you're studying for Security Plus, feel free to stop by next week for that live stream. But of course, we do one of these every month. So you're welcome to come back in January, the new year. We've got A Plus on January 3rd and 5th. The next Network Plus study group is on January the 11th. And we have another Security Plus study group. The first of the new year is on the 18th of January, something you can stick around. Got plenty to go through there. But we're not done with the study group, though. There's plenty more to do. We're finished with the Q&A part where I ask you the questions, but stick around for the after show, which is next. Just stay right where you are. Well, we're simply put up a screen, then we'll head right over to it. That after show is going to take questions from you. So if you've got a question you have about certifications, about IT, about networking, about anything relating to technology or anything else, maybe you have a question about something else going on in the world, we may be able to discuss that. Go to professormesser.com/live if you're not there already, or stay where you are on YouTube, and I'll be able to answer those questions. Don't forget about my success bundles. They're on my website on the pull-down menus, or you can go to professormesser.com/netsuccess. Also, don't forget about my discounted vouchers. Save some money on your vouchers. Don't pay full price. Go to professormesser.com/vouchers, where you not only get a discounted voucher, you also get my free exam hacks ebook, which is available nowhere else. Great way to do it. And if you, of course, want to keep track of what we're doing here, absolutely go to professormesser.com/YouTube/Twitter/LinkedIn/Instagram/Discord. Just type in professormesser.com/ the thing you would like to find me at. And hopefully it will take you there. And if it doesn't take you there, then I'm not at that location. Makes it that easy, isn't it? If you follow us on Discord, it's a great way to do it. And I will also ask if you enjoyed this time in our first hour. We'd love it if you hit that thumbs up button. Also helps us with the folks over at YouTube. They lets them know that you like the information that we are creating. Well, we've got plenty more to go. Stick around for the after show. We'll start it in just a couple of seconds, but I want to thank you for being here in this first hour, and thanks for joining us on the Network Plus study group. Thanks, everybody. Let's now shift gears. I'm going to try to get my screens working here. There we go. And see if we can get the after show started. This is where you can ask any question you would like. I don't know that I'll answer any question you happen to have, but you can ask any question you would like in the after show. Some of them are technical questions. Some of them have nothing to do with technology. For example, if you're really, really interested in things that might be, really high tech and really important, information of the day, you want to really be able to understand how my brain works, then you can ask questions like Dennis asked, which is, what's my favorite pizza flavor? And the correct answer to that one is free. Free pizza is my favorite flavor. There's really no other answer there, I don't think. Is there another answer? I'm not sure there is. This will, by the way, not turn into a Hawaiian versus non-Hawaiian. That's just too contentious. We can't go there. We'll stick to something very high level that we all can enjoy. And we're working through those details. So that's what I would recommend we do. I will answer any questions. I know there were a couple people asking questions earlier about A+. They're doing something else. What are we doing with all of these? We can always break these down and have a look at what those differences might be. But I'm gonna break these down and see how we're doing. We'll start with a good story from Dal, who says, just passed my 008 exam yesterday. Thanks for all your hard work creating some great content. Well, as I always say, I just created the videos. You had to watch them. You had to take notes. You had to understand what was happening on the network, and you're the one that had to take the exam. So I feel like I didn't do very much. I think you're the one who really did all the hard work. In both of those cases, though, we appreciate your support. Congratulations on your Network Plus as well. Always a great thing to hear about when people earn their certifications that we're doing this. Another question, this is a pretty good one, because this is a common question we get, I don't know, on a daily basis. This is from 14 kilovolts, who says, I'm an electrician trying to transition into InfoSec. I have no formal training or experience in IT. Well, everybody has to start somewhere. At one point, I had no formal training or experience in IT either. I plan on obtaining certs in the following order: A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, Linux Plus. Is this a good plan? Well, I'm going to turn the mirror around a little bit and say, oh, are people hiring in your area for individuals that have an A+, Network Plus, Security Plus, and Linux Plus? I will agree with you that all four of those contain very valuable information. All four of those can teach you an amazing amount of content around IT. But when you consider that it takes about 3 months, 2 to 3 months to get through each one of these certifications, then you're talking about 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 months of your time, assuming it's 2 months study and you do nothing else in your life. The real question is, how valuable is that to a hiring manager? And if you're someone who's just trying to get into IT, then you should probably try to match your training and experience to what a hiring manager would like you to have for training and experience. You don't want to show it with too little, but you also don't want to show it with too much. It's very easy to overqualify yourself for an entry-level position. I'm going to recommend, this is a little self-serving, but I wouldn't say it if it wasn't something that I didn't think would help, is that there's a video link on this YouTube video description. Go in and look at it, or you can search for this on the YouTube, which is how to get a job in IT with no experience. It's a video I created specifically for this question. And it's, as you can imagine, it's not just one thing. It's not just certifications. There's really 4 different elements that I think you should bring to the table. It should be a formal education, industry certifications, a practical level of experience. Doesn't necessarily mean professional, but practical. And then the last one is, you know, someone who already works there. So all 4 of those are valuable. All 4 of those can help you towards this process. You don't have to have all 4 of those elements to get an entry-level position in IT, but it helps. So it's a strategy. When you start looking at trying to get in the door, that's what you're trying to do at this point. You need to find the best possible fit that gets you in the door. Because once you have that first job in IT, you can use that job to begin leveling up and moving to higher level positions. You can think of this, you're now the journeyman in IT. You've got to learn the ropes. Fortunately, nobody's yelling at you to get things done most of the time, let's hope. A professional environment gives you specific roles, things you should do, the tasks you're able to complete, and then you work towards those goals. And eventually, you're going to learn more about the network. You're going to learn more about operating systems. You're going to learn more about security, which will then allow you to move up past the help desk into your next job. So that's what I would recommend. Go look at that video, see if that doesn't give you some ideas of things you can do. I do give you some tips in that video of things you can do at home. Create a lab. I give you some ideas on labs in that video. And then I tell you what you can do when you're in the interview to leverage the things you've been doing in your lab. And I think it's very valuable. The interview that you eventually go on, whether it's virtual or in person, needs to have a conversation. There needs to be something to talk about, and you're the one that needs to create that content. It's all in that video, how to get a job in IT with no experience. That's what I would recommend as well. Maybe that can help you with your studies. And if you've already got knowledge in doing anything with electricity, you're already a little ahead of the game. I will tell you, IT obviously deals with a lot of power. We got all these computing systems, but power is complex. You already know this. You're an electrician. There's nuances, there's calculations, there's things to look out for. I worked in a facility once where we had a big data center, had a bunch of servers. Somebody brought in a new server and said, we're bringing up the new server. It's the middle of the day. They plug it in, lights go out. Boo, everything turns off. They went over whatever the limit was, but nobody had ever calculated up to that point, how much power are we using? How much power is available? Is there any, are we properly sizing what's in this rack to the circuit that we're plugged into? Nobody had ever done the math. I wasn't in charge of the data center. That wasn't part of what I was doing. I wasn't the one that plugged it in, fortunately. But it did cause us to suddenly step back, unplug that, get the circuit back up and running. Now we need to do an audit. And those are things that can be very valuable. You could bring to the table knowledge that other people may not already have. And if you apply some IT knowledge on top of that, that may get you in the door. So there's some good stuff there. You may be able to leverage the knowledge you already have. Other questions. Let's do some more here. So a question from a BV says, could we talk a bit about the difference between ICMP and SNMP? Still having trouble understanding how to tell the difference in an exam question. Let's start with ICMP. The ICMP protocol is used by a network to kind of get keep the network running. So you can think of it as a network level management protocol, a way to tell what's going on. A good example of this is a ping. I think a ping is a great ICMP. A ping allows you to check on a device that's on the network and see if that device can communicate back to you. It's not telling you anything about an application. It doesn't tell you if your web server's up and running. It doesn't tell you if you can transfer files to that device. It doesn't tell you if that device is infected with a virus. It doesn't tell you if that device has any services running on it. There may be nothing running on that machine, but an operating system that's turned on. But at least we're able to send a message across the network and determine, is that device connected to the network and can it communicate on the network? That's about it. That's all a ping's going to tell you. And ICMP, that's sort of the level of knowledge it can give you, is to help keep the network running. But what if you're more interested in, is that switch running properly? Are all the interfaces connecting to that switch connecting and working properly? Can I see how much data each individual interface is sending back and forth? How many errors are occurring on each individual interface on that switch? If the switch has storage, is there a certain amount of storage that it's using right now? Is it running out of storage? Does it have more storage? Those are very specific, kind of an application or device level view of the management of that device. And for those, you would use SNMP. SNMP takes you above the network, gives you more information about what's happening inside of a device that's different than what's happening out on the network side. I would highly recommend you look at some trace files of ICMP and SNMP, take some pings, and have a look at what the differences are for the pings and the SNMP. It's very, very different. And I give you an example of those with SNMP, I think in the Network Plus course. We walk in SNMP, and I show you some more of those, but some good stuff there and working through it. John asks, in a 3-in-1 printer fax scanner, printer question, everybody. John, this is on you. I'm just saying, you've brought a printer question. We're gonna tackle this. I think we can do this. Also, thanks for the $5 super chat, which is well worth the question being answered, I think. Thanks so much for the question. The computer recognized the printer, good, but when I try to scan something, it's not recognized. This is very common on a 3-in-1 device. And it's different, it seems, as you go from one multifunction device to another. But how they most generally work is that if you want to print something from Windows, we'll say you're printing from Windows. When you try to print something from Windows, Windows needs to know what you're printing to. So you have to load a driver in Windows that says, I'm printing to this HP version of this particular device. And then Windows says, you're printing that HP. I know exactly how to format this file so that it will be understood by the printer. I know how to send it over to the printer. I know where the printer is. and I can send that over to the print server, and we can print that particular file. Same thing applies for the fax and the scanner. Windows by itself doesn't know that you have a scanner on the network. You need to load a scanner driver so that it knows where the scanner is, how to communicate to the scanner, what the conversations are that go back and forth to start the scanning process, to transfer the scan back to your machine. There's a whole set of things that have to happen. Sometimes that's a standalone driver that you can get from the manufacturer. Sometimes that particular function is one that will only work from an executable, from a program that the manufacturer gives you. And it's just an awful program. I know that I didn't mention a manufacturer. They're all bad. All of these little standalone programs that are able to control remotely the printer, the scanning, the faxing are almost all 100% bad when you try to use them. But it's all you got. So you work through the rudimentary functions associated with this application that a printer manufacturer wrote. Think of that. The printer by itself is bad enough. Now this printer company made a program you install in Windows to operate that printer. This is a recipe for disaster, and often is. But if you can just get it going good enough to scan things, I think you're okay. So it's very possible you don't have all of the pieces you need installed in Windows, and I bet if you either find the executable from the manufacturer or the driver from the manufacturer, you'll work. Sometimes you'll load the driver and it's still not talking, and you read through the documentation. It says, this driver can only be used if the scanner is directly connected to your machine. It cannot go across the network. Oh, got to get another program from the manufacturer. So it may take a little bit of research for you to finally get there, but that's another good thing you can think about when you start trying to troubleshoot problems with a network-based scanner. I wish you so much luck. Everyone here is saying Godspeed, and we hope you come out of it on the other side. It's not an easy thing, as you've probably already seen. If you're asking me for the answer, yes, you've already gone through some of the most horrible parts of this. Are there plans for practice exams for the Network Plus? There's plans. There's plans and there's plans. I would love to get practice exams going for Network Plus. I do work on a practice exams book for Network Plus. Don't have a release date at the moment. As I often say, it's one of those that in the coming months, I hope to provide you with an option for practice exams for Network Plus. That's as much as I have for you right now anyway. I'd love to have one. I think it's important that we have one. It's not available yet. I know. It's one of those, you have to write it. That's the real challenge, is actually writing the exams and making that happen. So that's what I would recommend. You just be patient, because that's what it's going to take for me anyway. It's a lot of work that has to go into this, but I've already got it sort of laid out. We're getting there. It may take a while to get that finally done. Other questions. This is a pretty good one, because this will come up from time to time. That's the wrong lower third. Let's do this one. Are accommodations made for an at-home test for people who are visually impaired? I heard the questions can be hard to see for people with good vision. Well, you're not wrong there, David. That's actually true. Having the right resolution on your screen, because the screen does not adjust itself to resolutions. That if you're running like a 5K screen like I am, and you try to take this exam, it'll be really small in the corner and you can't make it any larger. So a lot of people will set their computer to be sort of an HD resolution, which for a lot of us makes everything enormous, but that may be what you have to do. Your problem's a little bit different though, and this applies whether the accommodations are visual or if you're trying to get accommodations for other things. There is a process. So on the CompTIA website, there is a process you go through to allow you to get extra time based on a number of these accommodations. It is, in some cases, involved. There's a set of forms and things that have to be filled out. Nothing is ever easy, but there are people I've spoken with that have gone through the process. It worked exactly the way they said the process should work, and they were able to get accommodations for what they were doing. And for example, if you're taking the test in English, but English is not your first language, you can get accommodations for that, so you can get some extra time on your exam. Same thing for things like visual impairments. They have time they can give you and things they can do to help along with that. Each set of accommodations is different. I don't know the specifics around those relating to visual impairment, if it involves having someone there telling you what it says on the screen, or giving you extra time. I have no idea. But they do have a process, and it's on the CompTIA website where you can find those accommodations. If you can't find that link, send me a message in the Contact Us on my website, and I will provide you with more details of that, at least as much as I can find. And you can get that process going along with CompTIA. Other questions. Let's see what else we have here. Other questions in the list. I'm sort of scrolling way too fast. I don't want to miss any that might be here. So let me scroll up a bit. And if I didn't thank you already, John, earlier for that $5 super chat, thanks so much. And a great question with the fax scanner printer. I hope you get that straightened out. And if you do, let us know. I'd love to do a follow-up on another live stream with what we did with that one. Other questions. I think this is a pretty good one. A question I ask myself all the time. How do I become more technical? When troubleshooting, I can figure out what's wrong and how to fix it, but I struggle with why it is happening. And I think that's where our biggest problem as technical people is. You know, we're in this job in IT, well, first because it pays really well. But secondly, I think a lot of us we want to solve a problem. We want to solve an issue. It's like a quiz. It's like a brain teaser. Here's an issue. Let's see if you can fix it. Go. And then you have to figure out how to make that particular problem resolved. And you almost have to work backwards to solve the problem. What I see a lot of people do is someone will have a problem. Oh, I plugged in this router and it gave me this message. Oh, did you reset the router? Have you updated your BIOS? Did you reset your computer? We automatically go to how we can fix it. But what we don't do is try to figure out why is it saying that to begin with? Because if we know why the error message occurred, we can then extrapolate from that possible reasons for that and then be able to apply our troubleshooting towards an underlying issue rather than just throwing every possible troubleshooting thing at the screen, hoping that one of those is going to stick. Hopefully you've been able to see that in the A+ materials, if you've gone through those, is it tries to take you through a process. Because if you start immediately with, well, did you reboot? Hold on. We haven't even collected data yet on what's going on. Do we write down what the message is? Do we have a screenshot? Have we investigated what that message means? Do we have any detail around that? Are other people on the internet getting this message? How did they solve their problem? We haven't even done that yet. We immediately jump to, let's reboot. Let's upgrade the BIOS. Let's upgrade the driver. Let's upgrade the application. Have you uninstalled it and installed it? Why are you doing that? You're just guessing at that point. So your point is exactly where everybody else is. And I think the reason we tend to, well, let's just try something, is because we don't understand what's going on behind the scenes. We don't have any idea of why that message showed up. So the only thing we have is to just guess. Well, let's click on stuff, see what happens. That's not a great way to go through your troubleshooting life. So I would highly recommend you just do more research on these problems. Understand when a problem occurs, why that problem happened. And if you went through this, if suddenly the problem resolved itself and you don't know what you did to fix it, a lot of people take that as a win. I take that as an enormous loss because now I have no idea what's going on. Is the problem going to happen again? When it happens again, how do we resolve this? It would be nice to resolve it forever. And the only way I can do that is to do more research. I think it's all about research. You never stop doing research in this industry. A lot of people think I do the certifications, I get my job. Oh, the learning part of my life is over. No. This is like playing an MMO. You finally got to the top level of the MMO. You're the most powerful character you can be. And somebody in your guild says, oh, you're just getting started. This is just the beginning. There's so much more now you need to do. Same thing in IT. There's so much more. You never stop learning. You're constantly reading. You're constantly keeping up with what's happening in the industry. You're constantly doing troubleshooting and trying to understand what's happening behind the scenes. A lot of these things come with time, but they really come with research. If you can become more familiar with the underlying operation, you will find the troubleshooting part becomes so much easier. And in fact, you'll start hearing people go, well, have you rebooted? Like, hold on. This particular problem has nothing to do with the operating system. How do you know that? Well, because I've done research on this one. We need to do this to be able to start troubleshooting this problem. It's all about the research. So that's the best thing I can recommend is doing that. So hopefully that will help you. Other questions. This is a very broad question, but a pretty good one, which is what do you think are some important considerations when troubleshooting a fully remote workforce? In many ways, we have always been a remote workforce, especially if you're working on networks. Let's just take Network Plus, then we'll kind of step back to the A Plus. For Network Plus, you need to be familiar with administering, or you're probably getting into a job where you will administer switches, routers, firewalls, and other network devices. Very rarely, if ever, are those devices anywhere near you. They might be in another facility. They might be on another floor of your building. They might be in a different building, a different state, a different country. Most of the time you're at your desk, you get a message that says we're having problems with an increase in CRC errors on circuit 0/3 on the Albuquerque router. Well, you're in Florida, so at your desk, you SSH into the switch. You have a look at the interface. You watch the CRCs. You're trying to get an understanding, is it going across other interfaces or not? So a lot of what you're doing is at your desk. You're remote already. So those skills that you're learning by sitting at a desk and being a help desk, being a network operations center, being a security operations center, are the same skills you bring to the table when you have a fully remote workforce. There are obviously some additional tools. Prior to us shutting down for the pandemic, there were a number of organizations that did not have comprehensive VPN connectivity, and they didn't have a comprehensive plan for remote management and control of other people's devices. And so it changed the tools they needed to be able to make those things happen. So a lot of organizations have already worked through those problems. They're now at a point where they can easily support a fully remote workforce, but it takes a different set of procedures and it takes a different set of tools. And hopefully those tools and procedures are available in your organization. So that's what I would recommend. Let's see what other questions we might have. Let's see what else I've got on here. The question asks, since the Network Plus test requires about 80% to pass, should I wait to schedule the exam until I can consistently do better than 80% of the practice tests? Well, unfortunately, the math here doesn't work out. For a number of reasons. First, the exam is not a 720 over 900. It's really a 620 over 800 because the scale is from 100 to 900, not 0 to 900. On top of that, each question is worth a different number of points, so we can't calculate a percentage from that. But if you're trying to determine what percentage should I be looking for on my practice exams, 80% is a pretty good number, I think. I think in my book, I have, if you're doing 80 to 85%, you're probably ready to take your exam. If you do 90%, you're absolutely ready to take your exam. Those are good round numbers, but don't try to tie them back to an exam. Just use them as a set of barometers that you can check yourself with. Was I able to get past this particular step? Can I get up to 75% on a practice exam, 80%? I think above 80% positions you pretty well for taking the exam. The ultimate test is, can you go through the exam objectives and can you explain to someone else what each one of those bullets happens to be? That's what I would recommend. So combine that with your practice tests. I think 80% is a good number. That's the way I think you should approach these. Don't, whenever you look at a practice exam, I get a lot of people asking me, oh, on a performance-based question, there's 5 steps. Do I get partial credit? How should I calculate this? And I say, hold on. The practice tests aren't there for you to become knowledgeable on how to grade the exam. Doesn't matter because you'll never know how they graded the exam anyway. These are not exam grading simulations. These are, do I know the content simulations? So worry more about, do I know everything? And don't worry so much about how they grade it, because ultimately you have no control over it. You have no way to audit that. You have no way to go back after the exam and see what you got right and see what you got wrong. There's no way to do that. They don't tell you which questions you got right and which questions you got wrong. The only thing they tell you is what your score is. Okay, well, if that's the case, don't worry about all the other stuff. Concentrate on your exam objectives, and that's what's going to take you over the top when you finally sit in the exam. That's my recommendation anyway. Other questions. Not a bad question. Hey, Professor, how would you get into system administration these days? Most job openings I see for the requirements seem to be inflated. For example, I see requirements for 5+ years of server management. That would be, you're already well past the prime. If you're in server management for 5 years, the last thing you probably want is another server management job, right? And I think what's going to happen for the people looking for the job is they're not going to get a lot of positions, not going to get a lot of CVs and resumes from people that have 5 years of server management because they're not going to want that job. Don't worry so much about what companies would like, or in some cases even require. If you think this is a job that you are qualified for, send them your resume. If you're not qualified for it, they will tell you you're not qualified for it. Done. It's not a love connection. We're not going to go on a date. We're not going to have any more conversations, and that's fine. You know, the idea of being able to deal with rejection is a very adult one that I hope to be able to handle someday. But for most of us, we have to do this all the time. We have to have a way to put our resume out. And if you genuinely think you are qualified for that and you've done the work with your resume, you've optimized this resume, you've created a customized resume and cover letter for this particular job, you're using the T format of your cover letter that I describe in my video on 5 more reasons your resume keeps getting rejected, which is also in the, I think it's probably in this YouTube video description. If it's not, Lori will put it there. Thank you, Lori. That is another good one to go through, and make sure that you've created a resume that exactly matches what you know for this job. Give it to the folks that are looking for the job. And if they're just really hardcore about the 5+ years of management and you don't have it, they'll throw it out. And you're going to keep moving. You're going to find the right job. You will find the right one eventually. And this particular organization will probably think, gosh, we have gone through 75 resumes and none of them match this 5+ years of server management. And maybe someone in the room will say, you may want to come off of that a little bit. All right, well, let's go back through this list then and see who we can call. This happens. That's sort of a normal part of doing job postings. So don't worry so much about what they think you should have. If you really think you're qualified for the job, send your resume in. Send a very qualified, well-constructed, customized resume, which is what you should be doing for every resume you send in, and let them know this is something I can do for you. I fit perfectly what you're wanting to do, and I can start tomorrow. Let's go and make that happen. So I'd recommend you do that. Other questions, Python, C++, JavaScript, etc. All the computer programming languages, are they all in the application layer? Or do some software languages exist/operate in a different layer? Well, now we're sort of conflating an idea of a model versus something that, and the OSI model is, I'm assuming, what we're referring to here with the application layer. The OSI model describes how you get data from one side of the network to the other. It doesn't describe the thing that it's connecting to on the other side. Oh, look, I have an Intel server. What OSI layer is that? It's not a layer. It's not going across the network. It's a server. Python, what server is that? It's not, or what layer is that? It's not a layer. It's Python. It's an application, it's a programming language, or with Python, it's a scripting language. It's not something we would use and refer to in the OSI model sense. The OSI model is really a very broad model to broadly describe the way we get data sent from one side of the network to the other. And each one of these programming languages / scripting languages operates and sends data in different ways. There's no way you can put it into a model. The OSI model isn't there so that you can put everything in the world into that model. That's not what it's designed to be. And quite honestly, as a network administrator, somebody working in IT, you're probably not going to work with C++. You'll have very little workings with JavaScript. You'll probably do quite a bit with Python for scripting. You'll probably do a lot with PowerShell for scripting. Those are the 2 places you should probably go. You're probably not going to do any programming. And by programming, I mean you're building an application. You're taking requirements from a user, you're building out an entire application, and you're giving that user a web-based application, a mobile-based application, or some executable. We don't do that in IT. We don't build programs in IT. We do scripting and we do automation. And Python is a great way to do that. PowerShell is a great way to do that. That's where I would recommend most people start with those. But don't try to tie it to a layer. That's not what the OSI layer is designed to be. And ultimately, fights about the OSI layer are just horribly boring anyway. Don't get into a fight with the OSI model. it's sort of pointless because it's a model. It doesn't exist, and there's no way to kind of put things and explain things that way. So that's what I would recommend, is don't get caught in that scenario. Other questions. Let's see what else we have here. Click, click, click. More. Let's keep going through these. More. Oh, I like these. Higher Perspectives say, hey, Prof, passed 2 days ago with a 795. Great score, by the way. I wanted to say thank you, Hart. Bought your notes. You helped me a lot. So thank you so much for your support. Congratulations on what I think is Network Plus, your Network Plus certification. You self-studied. Congratulations. Y'all got this. I like it when the y'all people show up. My brothers, my brethren. Security Plus gang, baby. Great place to go next is that Security Plus, especially if your job postings that you're seeing are asking for a lot of Security Plus. If you're in the DC area, that federal government area, or if you're working with an organization that works closely with the federal government, Security Plus is probably going to help you quite a bit. Congratulations on that Network Plus. And thanks also for your support with the course notes and more. So we appreciate that too. Always good to hear a success story and being able to work through those. Other questions. Let's keep going. Going back to the multifunction device. Feels good to be a gangster sometimes. Sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes it does. Other questions that folks have. Let's see what we got. More. The seaweed is always greener. Because Dennis says, Professor, what kind of cable goes under the sea connecting continents? There was a great article written recently that talked about this. I want to say it was a YouTube video now I'm thinking about it. And I want to say, was it a Vox video? Was it a number file video? I'm not sure which one it was because I watch a lot of YouTube. And they went through the process of how do we get the internet through the sea? And it was intriguing. The amount of work that goes into connecting all of those up and the amount of connections we have between all of these, mostly with fiber, there's some copper in there as well, mostly fiber these days, is remarkable. I would highly recommend you go out to the YouTube and have a look at those. That was some good stuff. And that's a kind of a science unto itself. You know, we often say that everybody's network's pretty much the same. Sometimes they are a little bit different. I have worked on systems and network management and security for a lot of different kinds of organizations. I've been in financial organizations, working with people that were on trading floors. I've worked with security professionals and networking professionals that were in charge of a brewery, a very large brewery company that has enormous manufacturing. So it was almost a manufacturing floor and the challenges they have with that. I've been to companies that build cars on the car assembly lines. I've been into nuclear power plants. Although the protocols are the same, there are obviously very big differences on how different parts of that network operate and what the important pieces are with each one of those components that we have on the network. So you never know what you might find out there and how it might be different. I think if you're in a company that is trying to connect different continents together under the sea, you're probably going to have some unique technologies there as well. Let's see different ideas. So here is an example of trying to make it happen. So Elliot says, I passed A+, started Network Plus, eventually want the trifecta for leverage, transitioning from customer service. Actually, you're transitioning into customer service, but not ready to make a jump full time. What are common ways to get experience as a side hustle? I have some ideas here, maybe not as a side hustle. Obviously, one of the most common ways when I think side hustle, I think additional revenue. How can we make some more money with this technology? And there are things you can do, especially with small companies that need very smart technical people to be able to set up their antivirus solutions, to manage their printers, to make sure that everything is backed up properly, to have a restoration process in place. There's all of this that sort of surrounds that. You can make a nice business just managing small company networks that way, or provide them with just an ongoing consulting. They can bring you in when they need something done. They pay you as a 1099, completely legitimate. That's the way it's supposed to work. As long as you, of course, are bringing that in and mentioning it as income on your tax forms, you're just fine. If you aren't sure what you should do with that, make sure you contact a tax professional. It's relatively easy. They'll tell you exactly how you work through this. Ultimately, it means you've just got some revenue. You have to pay taxes on the revenue. You keep the rest. That's how it works. That's how our system works with taxes. And that's what I would recommend you do as well. Also on my video of how to get a job in IT with no experience, I give you some examples of different labs you could set up. You could set up an Active Directory lab. You could build a firewall lab with an IPS. You can do all these different pieces. Maybe you set up a WordPress lab where you build out your own web server, your own database server. You connect all of them together. You start building out a content management system. I mean, all of those things have value. They bring to the table more knowledge that you can then apply to what you're doing either in your real-time job or your after-time job. And all of those, you just keep doing it. You just keep building your knowledge base. You just keep adding to the things you happen to know. And eventually you have all of this knowledge that someone would be able or willing to pay for. So I think that's an important part. As a side hustle, I used to do sort of ad hoc consulting with people that I knew. So I'd go in for an hour after work, hour or two, load some new applications, do some antivirus, make sure the printer is working properly. They'd pay me for a couple hours time, and we'd see them in a month. Pretty common, sort of the lawn maintenance of technical people. You know, just sort of show up, you do what they need to have done. We'll see you next month, kind of thing. Other questions? Let's keep going. Let's keep the party going. What a great idea. I need to open up my own online school. Mike, where are you, brother? Come on now. We gotta work through some of this, I think, and be able to get there. I'm way behind on my list here. I got to scroll faster to get through all of these. Let's keep going. How soon can you start earning a CEU after passing? You could start immediately after passing, but I will tell you, not everybody uses a continuing education unit for renewal. Some people would just prefer taking the Cert Master CE. You can take it in a day and you're done. You're like upgraded for 3 years. It renews your certification for 3 years. So you may not even need to go through the process of collecting CEUs, or you may find in your normal job where you go to trade shows and you do training classes and the normal things that you do may bring in enough CEUs to renew your certification. Everybody's a little bit different, but you can start immediately after earning your certification. Other questions. Can I take up my exam voucher from another country? I'm not sure what the question is, but I'll tell you that if you are taking your exam in the United States, you need a voucher that was purchased specifically for the United States. If you're taking your exam in the UK, you need a voucher that has been specifically purchased for taking the exam in the UK. If you take your exam in Australia, you need a voucher that has specifically been created and purchased for taking your exam in Australia. And I think a lot of that, I don't know why exactly that is, but I can guesstimate that has to do with revenue recognition and differences in how you would move monies between different countries. It's not a simple thing, as I have found. It's a relatively complex process. And that's why I believe the vouchers are very specific to where you happen to be taking the exam. And I will tell people, sometimes people will buy a voucher on my website, and when you buy the voucher, you have to put in what your country is. And someone will put in the country, oh, I'm in Germany. And I'll have to send them a note and say, well, this voucher is only good in the US or Canada. Are you planning to fly to the US or Canada to take your exam? And they'll often say, no, can you refund this back to me? Although I have talked to people that were in the Caribbean, they were on an island, and they're saying, yeah, I'm flying into Miami to spend some time doing some things. I'm going to take my exam then. Oh, okay, well, that's the voucher that you would use. Even though you live in that country, you're going to take the exam in the U.S. You bought an exam voucher for the U.S. Those match. That's what you should do. that's what I would recommend as well. So even though I have vouchers on my site that are discounted for the US and Canada, you can't buy them in another country and then take the exam in that country. They won't work. It will not work that way. They'll stop you. So you don't want to be in that situation to do that. So if we want to apply that, Abigail says, I bought my exam voucher in Asia, but then I moved to America. Can I still use your voucher? Yes, if you go back to Asia to take your exam, but not if you take your exam in the United States. However, this one's interesting. I was able to schedule an exam. I don't know if I'll have a problem on the actual date. If you're able to schedule your exam with the voucher you used, I am suspecting that if you bought the voucher in Asia, that when you scheduled the exam, your contact information was your old address. Can you take the exam? Yeah, I think you're not gonna have a problem. I think they'll allow you to take the exam and fine. It's during the scheduling process where you would run into a problem. If you didn't run into a problem, just don't say anything. You'll be okay. Just take your exam. That's what I would recommend. Not an official word to be able to do that. That's what I would do. We'll see how this works. What's the worst that could happen? You go through the exam and it doesn't work. Okay, well, we thought it might not. So then we can do something else. But if they were able to schedule it, you've used your voucher. So they kind of have to, you're locked in now. That's what I think is happening. So that's what I would recommend, is doing, just going through that. That's the idea. More things. Question. This one's sort of network related, but not really, but kind of. Devendra says, do you think a Network Plus cert is good for my resume for applying as a field cable technician, although I have no experience in the telecommunications industry? I will say that cabling, and especially field cabling, is a very niche position that has very little to do with networking. Has a lot to do with cable, has a lot to do with copper, has a lot to do with fiber, but not a lot to do with IT, quite honestly. I've had situations where I've had to have my local ISP come to my studio. They've had to run new cable to the studio. We got a whole bunch of people involved about the running of the cable. They were very knowledgeable in cable running. They knew everything they needed. They knew exactly what type of cable we needed to put in the ground. They knew how we needed to put the cable in the ground. They knew where it needed to be run. They knew how to avoid most of my irrigation system. But they had no idea on when you plug in the cable, how does that work? They didn't know. They don't understand what's happening with the signal on the wire. They don't know how that signal turns into IP. They don't know how your system receives that data. They don't know how it's routed across the network. They knew nothing about the IT side of things. So I would say the Network Plus certification has a limited amount of help for field cable technician. It might help you a little bit. It might get the attention of the hiring manager, but from a practical perspective, very little that's on the Network Plus certification is going to apply towards a position as a field cable technician. Although having skills like that are very useful if you eventually want to get into IT and doing networking. I would have loved to have somebody on my team that would have been able to splice fiber. There were so many cases where that came up. Not everybody's able to do that. It's very specific. So that's what I would recommend, is kind of lean into it, but it's not going to provide you with much of that, at least when you get down to that side of things. Other questions. Let's see what we got here coming in. So let's, this is from Oscar, who says, by the way, the 10-pound super chat. Thank you, Oscar, who says, hello, thanks for the help. Going to take my exam Friday. I was supposed to take it last week. There was an error on the Pearson VUE side, but I get to watch a week more of your videos. I think I recall last week that they did have a disruption in their systems. There was an entire day where they kind of had to cancel everyone for that day, and it was very disruptive. That just happens when you're working through it. So that's why I would, it's sort of good. I like the way you approached it. Now I got an extra week. We can lock this down. Hopefully you're able to do that. This is Wednesday. You're taking your exam on Friday. Let me imply the next set of questions people are going to ask, which is, what do I do to study for these last couple days, these last 2 or 3 days? And I would say for the last week of what you're doing, I would grab the exam objectives, and there's your checklist. Go through the exam objectives and check off every bullet you feel comfortable with. Circle the things you don't feel comfortable with. Study those so that you can turn them into check marks, and you'll be ready for your exam. I think that's a good approach to studying for this exam, and one that might help you as well. Thanks, Oscar. Best of luck on your exam on Friday. Please email me and let me know how it went. Use that contact us link at the top of the site. And thank you also for the 10-pound super chat. We are so thankful for all of those, and we wish you the best on your exam. Other questions? Scroll. We're going to keep going. So I have other folks. Okay. This is a really good example of what you can do with this certification that's in your pocket. Avaro says, I'm here to say again, with the update, I finished, got my CompTIA A+ cert in October. I'm getting offers to work at universities as an IT analyst. Thanks for your help. This is what certifications bring to the table. Again, it's not just certifications. It's being able to talk to people. It's being able to have a knowledge in IT. Often being able to have a conversation is more valuable to a hiring manager than your overall troubleshooting skills. But when you can bring to the table some practical knowledge that you were able to get through what is a relatively complex certification. A lot of people will dismiss A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus and say, oh, that's entry level. Who needs that? Well, entry level people need that. It's sort of weird that people who have made their way in this industry, that have worked up through the ranks, that they're now at a higher level, they're an IT person, they're a network technician, they're a security professional, will dismiss people who are trying to get their foot in the door. I don't understand it. I don't understand why many of those folks are not more understanding of the process, because they went through that same process. But I think there's a lot, with many things, there's a lot of gatekeeping that you'll run into in the industry. Fortunately, that's a very small number of people. Most of the folks I have worked with in IT, the vast majority, not just the majority, the vast majority of people that I've worked with in IT have been interested in watching other people succeed. They have helped other people get jobs. They have pointed people in other directions to be able to gain information they might need. It's a very nice group of folks. You're working in a very professional area. You're working with technology. There's things that we all can learn from this, and nobody knows everything. And anybody who tells you they know everything really don't know everything. And, strong is weak and weak is strong, almost always. If you've ever done any work with understanding how to watch people at a poker table and understanding the way people react at the poker table is a very good correlation to how people act when they're just out in the world. And that's a good one to be able to figure out. When people are that strong about, I'm so right about this, and what I'm saying is so right, what they're really saying is, I have no idea what I'm saying. I'm just trying to tell everybody I'm right, because I really don't know. I'm breaking through what it is. It's very funny that's the way it works, but that is indeed the way it works. Usually just dismiss those folks and keep working on those. I've been told no in this industry so many times. People have been dismissive over the things that I've done in this industry so many times, including this endeavor. There are people that sort of poo-pooed the idea of, oh, you're setting up a little YouTube thing with the technology. That's adorable. That's how condescending they were towards me. Miss you guys. Miss you guys from that. Now I just do this full time. So you know what you're capable of. Other people don't know what you're capable of. And very interestingly, other people who don't understand what you're doing will probably be the first ones to give you negative feedback. Oh, I don't know what you're doing there. That looks challenging. That doesn't look like something I would do. Therefore, it can't be very good. Well, that's just human. That's just human nature, and that's fine. You need to recognize that happens and just keep it going. And when people say, yep, got my A+, got my Network Plus, working on Security Plus, people are saying, you want to come work here? Yes, I do. And then you just keep going. Now you level up. As I've mentioned in other study groups, you always start at the bottom. Sometimes you start below the bottom like I did, but you start at the bottom and you learn a lot and your knowledge goes up, and then you're able to get a new job at that new knowledge level. and then you keep going up, you keep the knowledge going, and you keep leveling up. And that's pretty much how it's going to work for you in IT. You'll get that first job, and that's why I tell you that foot in the door is so important. I've had people complain to me about the foot in the door thing and say, yeah, but they're offering me such a poor amount of money, and the salary's not where I want it to be, or the hourly rate is not where I want it to be. I really need another 50 cents an hour. And I'm thinking to myself, what you really need is a foot in the door, because what you're getting paid today is going to be a pittance compared to what you're going to be paid 5 years from now if you apply yourself. This is an industry where you can make a lot of money, and you can make that money, and you can get to that level in a relatively short period of time. But you have to apply yourself. You have to be strategic. Sometimes there's a little luck involved, but it's there. The opportunities are there. This is not one where, oh, that guy making six figures, he lucked into that position. That doesn't happen. It's hard work. It's understanding what's happening with the technology. It's applying yourself. It's networking with other folks. It's showing people that you know what you're talking about, and being a professional when moving up between those different places. The money is there. The flexibility is there. The positions are out there, but you need to get in the door. That's where it starts. And I realize that a lot of people, we've already talked today about if you're an electrician and you're working a pretty good electrical job, you're making some good money as an electrician. You're making good money as a teacher, as a someone in the fire department, as a police officer, as a teacher, these are all people I've spoken with, as a truck driver. You're making some good cash. And what they're saying is, I don't like doing that. There's a limit. I can't make any more than this, or the job itself is not fulfilling. I want to do something where I'm constantly thinking, where I'm solving problems. There's a lot of positions available, and there's upward mobility upon upward mobility upon upward mobility. And that's certainly IT to a T. That is information technology. The problem, though, is if you have one of those jobs, your first job in IT is probably going to be a pay cut. Oh, that's painful. So here's what you do. You save up a little money. This might take you a number of months, but you have a strategy. Save up a little cash. Just have a little bit sitting there to cover the difference. You're not trying to replace all of that. You just need to cover the difference, and then get that first job for 6 months. And after 6 months in a help desk, you should have accumulated a good set of knowledge that positions you well for desktop administration, server administration, network administration, maybe something in security, maybe not, but maybe there's something there if you work in a really large company. But you're moving up into a new level. You're leveling up in IT. That's what you should be doing, is leveling up. And it's very easy to quickly level up in 6 months, in a year and a half, in 3 years, and 5 years later, you've now surpassed what you could have ever possibly made in any of those other fields. So that's why I tell people, I get that there's the money issue. That's an absolutely valid and something you should be concerned about and something you should plan for. But there are also ways that you can work around that, because I got to tell you, the upward mobility is there, the money is there, the positions are there, and you get to decide what you want to do, not someone else deciding what you want to do. So that's my recommendation for those of you trying to make that change or trying to get that first job. Go get it. Just take the job. Get in the door. You're not going to be working with that company the rest of your life. You don't, because that's not the way it works. In IT, because the differences in salaries are so dramatic between these different ranges, these different levels that I am mentioning, it's very difficult to start with a company, and you might move up and get a promotion once within that company, but you'll find the next promotion, they will offer you kind of a percentage upgrade on what you're already making, but that job is making a lot more in another company. And that's why you often see people on what we call the 3-year plan. That's a very common term. That 3-year plan is you stay somewhere 3 years, then you move to another organization. You stay there 3 years, then you move to another organization, because companies would rather give you an incremental increase in pay than to pay you what someone would cost out that they bring in from the outside. Ironically. So what you do is you be one of the people from the outside so that you get a nice big jump in pay. Now, if money's not that important to you, then that's not a big deal. There might be other things in the organization that are more important, more benefits that you get. That's fine too. You find the thing that works for you. As I've mentioned in other study groups, I'm very coin operated. My endeavors to make things happen in my career were about getting an increase in pay. Whether that was for the good or bad, that's sort of what drove me towards knowing more and working and troubleshooting and learning and keeping it going. Other people would prefer having a job where they have more flexibility in when they can work. Other people want a position that is no travel, that it's only local. Some people prefer a position that's all travel with nothing local. Every job was a little bit different. So you need to find the one that works for you. My path was, I'll give you an overview of my path. So we'll break down how did I start, what did I go to next, and I'll just give you sort of the high-level view of what I did. My first position was really during college. I got a degree in business management from Florida State University. While I was at Florida State, I got a job working in their computing center, which at the time was mainframes and supercomputers. It was a liquid nitrogen cooled supercomputer. That's how fast this thing, that's how hot this thing ran, is we literally cooled it with a cryogenerator that would freeze the liquid nitrogen, send it through the computer where it would get warm, back into the cryogenerator, and it would just cycle through. Amazing place to do that. Anytime you're working with an environment where the computing environment is used in research, it's remarkable the things you'll run into. So that's where I started learning technology, if you want to call it that. Working as an operator for a mainframe is sort of the boringest, doldrumest kind of job that doesn't teach you a lot other than here's how you take printouts off the printer, here's how you take plots off the plotter, here's how you put tapes on the tape drive. That was my job. And it was I'd look at a screen, the screen would say, put tape 3 on drive 2. Done. What's next? Take printout off printer. Okay. What's next? It was sort of a very low level position, but it sort of got me familiar with the process, the systems, the people, and how all of these things work together. It was an idea of understanding how all that worked that I sort of took with me the rest of my career. Coming out of school, I got a job working as a field service technician for a computer company in South Miami. That field service job was I'd show up in the morning, I'd get all the things I needed for the day, and then I'd go from customer to customer to customer in South Florida, installing a hard drive, installing more memory, replacing a printer, delivering a cable sometimes. Oh, we forgot to send the cable out. Can you run the cable out there for us? Okay, off I go. Because they're paying me. So it was a salary. I would just, whatever you needed, and I would go do that. But you meet a lot of really interesting people doing that allowed me to level up into a corporate help desk position. I leveled up into the help desk. So I got a job working at an insurance company in Miami near the airport. I worked there for 5 years or so, and then leveled up. My first job after that was working for the manufacturer themselves. I started working for Network General, which was the company that made the sniffer. So I became a systems engineer where I would visit a customer. They would say, we're having a problem understanding application slowdowns. And I would say, boy, do I have the thing for you. This will tell you everything you need to know about what's causing those slowdowns. Here's your sniffer. And here's how you use it. So we work through that. And so that's where I sort of used that technology in previous jobs, but now I'm working for the company that makes the technology. And I traveled the world with this knowledge. I would travel the United States and elsewhere showing people these technologies on how to make their networks more secure, on how to make their networks more efficient. Interestingly enough, that particular company was bought by NetScout. And then soon after that acquisition, I left NetScout and went to this young startup. They hadn't even got their product on the market yet. It was an unknown company who made a firewall called Palo Alto Networks. And I was one of the first sales/engineer teams hired for that company. I was the 95th employee at Palo Alto Networks and became systems engineer for security. So I kind of went from system administration, network administration, servers, hopped into the network management with protocol analysis, and then from there jumped into really a type of security that the industry had never seen before, which was next generation firewalls. So you never know where this stuff's going to go. As you kind of go from place to place to place, jumping and seeing where things go and how it fits. There were other jobs in there, some that were good, some that were not so good. That's sort of the way it works. But I stayed at Palo Alto Networks, I guess, about 7 years until jumped out of there and started doing this full time. I started doing this while I was there. So you talk about side hustle. This was sort of the after work weekend job, was doing this. And then eventually this just got so busy that I kind of had to let Palo Alto Networks go hire another systems engineer. And then I just started doing this full time. So that was my path. And that's a very short description of what occurred over a very long time frame. We're talking many, many years of work along that, almost 20, 25 years of being a systems engineer or some type of administrator on the network. But that's where you learn things. That's where you're in the trenches. You're understanding what people are doing with these technologies. You meet a lot of great people, some of which I still can talk with over LinkedIn. It was really a great way to learn what the industry was doing and how things worked. And being eventually you just decide, okay, I'm a systems engineer. I'm going to travel constantly. I'm going to meet a lot of great people. I'm going to work with technologies that the industry has literally never seen before and show people what it does. Those very first meetings that I had, I was pretty well honed in the process of systems engineering. I was trained very well by Network General. And now I was showing people these new technologies with next generation firewalls. Imagine walking into a company, though, with a technology that no one had ever seen that sounds it sounds like a fantasy. It sounds like something that doesn't exist. I can put this on your network and tell you immediately every single person who's doing peer-to-peer networking. I can tell you what everyone's downloading. I can tell you what every application people are using just by plugging this in. In fact, we'll plug it in, we'll go to lunch, when we come back, we'll look at it. That's what we would do. And after you go to lunch and come back, it's been an hour and it's been an hour and a half. You pull up the display and it was remarkable, the things you could see. And then you can tell people, I can control every single bit of this traffic. And they'd say, first, I don't believe what you're showing me. Secondly, I don't believe you can control it, because nothing at that time could. That's the situation you want to be in. As a technologist, that's exciting. I've got technology here that no one's seen before. And not only have they not seen it, they don't believe it even when you're showing it to them. It was almost too easy. It was almost too easy of a job. It was incredibly complex. It was a very technical product. You had to know a lot about a lot of things. But the ultimate thing that it brought to the table, the ultimate advantage that this provided to the customer, was so outside the scope of anything anyone's seen before that it was just a blast to be able to plug this in and show it to people. And they would say, I don't think anything can do that. Well, this can. And let me show you how it does that. What fun if you're someone in technology to be able to do something like that. I would love to be able to make that happen. And that's where you start to have these experiences where they say, look, we need somebody in Australia for a week. Can you go and talk about this? Yeah, let's go. We need you in London to do this. We need 2 weeks before Christmas. We need you in Scotland to install this very comprehensive reporting system for a large bank in Scotland. I'm there. Let's go. They have Scotch? Yeah, I'm in. That's all you have to say. Scotland, I'm in it. Those are things you just never would be able to do working with any other vertical market. If I was in medicine, if I was in transportation, if I was in manufacturing, probably wouldn't have those things to do, but just found a lot of amazing things, a lot of different places to go, and met a lot of great people doing that. And anyone can do this. Anyone can make that happen. You have to apply yourself. You have to look for the right openings. You have to have a strategy. You can't be afraid to do things. You can't be afraid of failure, because got to tell you, you're going to fail. There were places that I had significant failures, significant disappointments to myself and others. It's just sort of life. That's how it works. But you pick yourself up and you just keep moving and you just keep learning and you just keep making it happen. And eventually it's remarkable the things you will run into. And that's what I would recommend too. And that's when you run into these situations, this is a completely feasible thing to do. This is saying, your career seems pretty exciting. I'm a field support tech for 1 year. I feel you. At some point in my career, I want to become systems engineer, ultimately CTO. That's where our particular stories divide. I always wanted to be technical. I tried being a systems engineer manager for a short period of time, and I was just abysmal at it. I just was not very good. To which my management told me, you're not very good at this. We're going to have you be a systems engineer again. And I said, thank you. At the time, I didn't say thank you. I thought myself an enormous failure, and I'll never make it in this industry. And what was I thinking? I'm now at a loss, and I'm not sure what to do with the rest of my career, and it's all over for me. And then they put me back to being a systems engineer and brought in somebody else to manage us. And I realized, no, I really like being an SE. I really like being technical. And as it turns out, you can stay technical in this industry and make, in some cases, more than the managers are making, especially if you're systems engineering, because you get a certain percentage of your pay is based on how much you sell. And if you sell more than your quota, then you get into multipliers, and you can make quite a bit of money if you're really, really good at being a systems engineer. So that's why I think in your story that you have here, I would have stopped at systems engineer. If you're working through a story and trying to figure out where do we go next with this, well, there's a whole nother set of worries that we have to worry about at that point. But CTO is perfectly reasonable. Why stop at CTO? Be the CEO of an organization. I have to tell you, I kind of enjoy being the CEO. That's a very small organization, and ultimately I'm the one in charge, but it's a great way to decide how you want to apply this knowledge that you've gathered over such a long period of time. And I think it's a perfectly reasonable path. Why wouldn't you? And there will be people that look at you, oh, your field service. Oh, you're just driving around all day, replacing motherboards or installing SSDs or whatever you happen to be doing. But you can already see yourself, no, this is just the beginning. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and ultimately we're going to be here. Now, what's interesting is this career is remarkable at the number of curveballs it likes to throw. So you kind of have to be open for anything. And that's what I tell people that happened in my career. The position I got working as a systems engineer for Palo Alto Networks was a bluebird. It was somebody I'd worked with in the past who just called me out of the blue and said, I'm interviewing with these folks. I think they're going to hire me. I'd love you to be my SE. Why don't you talk to these folks? And I did. And they said, well, we don't like you. We don't want to hire you. That's how my career starts at Palo Alto, is them saying, oh no, you're not built for this. We don't want you as an SE. And we basically said, please, I'm begging you. And I had some people really fighting for me on the back end to convince them. I think they finally said, okay, but if this doesn't work out in a number of months, we're throwing them out and bringing somebody in who actually knows something. And it all worked out. They haven't figured out yet that I don't know anything. So that's good. Fake it till you make it. It all worked out because it was a remarkable technology. How could you not be excited at that opportunity? How could you not be excited with that technology? It's one of those rare cases where the product actually does what they say it does. And it's when you're working in a company, and I've worked at these companies before, I won't tell you which one, but when you're working with a company that's a little bit shady, the problem is this is a multi-billion-dollar company that everybody's heard from, but they were a little bit shady to the point that I think their CFO, to the point that our CFO went to federal prison. That was a bad situation because it all trickles down. If the CEO and the CFO are not quite right ethically, it also is the vice presidents and managers all the way down the line. So not a great situation. But if you're working for a company, and Palo Alto Networks is this company where the CEO, the CTO, the CFO, the legal department, the manufacturing team, the support team, the logistics folks, everybody in that company was top-notch. They put together the primo set of people that had done this before, and they just decided to take technology to the next level. When you're in that kind of company, you can tell, you can see it, you can feel it, it's obvious that they got something going on. So you can tell once you get into a company, you can kind of tell, Am I going to be here a long time or am I going to be here a short time? Either way, I'm going to learn everything I can learn. I'm going to be familiar with these technologies. I'm going to lock away all the synapses so they fire the right way. And then we're going to do whatever's next for us. So that's what I would recommend. Just keep your head down, keep learning, find the right fit for you. Eventually you will find that right fit. And sometimes it's one you work into. Sometimes it's a bluebird. It's a phone call from somebody you haven't heard from in years that completely changes your life. You just never know. The potential's there though. That's the beauty of IT is it's there. You never know how it's going to turn out. You just have to apply yourself and keep going. That's the beauty of something, is that the luck that you bring, there's no such thing as luck. There's a lot of hard work. There's a lot of effort. There's a lot of learning that goes on. And then it's about timing. So if you weren't prepared when that lucky thing showed up, then it's not going to be lucky for you. But if you've done all the work and you're prepared, when that opportunity comes along, you can just grab it and go along with it. That's the part in IT that just gets me so excited. That's the reason I made this company, because I want more people to experience that. I want more people to have that opportunity. I want more people to see that they can set themselves, their family, their children up for whatever you want it to be. You've got control of this. It really is in a remarkable industry, and we just need people to be able to apply themselves, be ready, and be all set up whenever that opportunity comes along and just grab it as it's going down. That's what I would recommend. Other questions. Here's another success story from T. T says, thank you so much for your Network Plus videos and study groups. Passed my Network Plus last week. Couldn't have done it without you. CCNA next for me. Very good, because Tom, telecoms engineer, London, UK, great place to be for telecommunications, great place to be for telecommunications engineering, and CCNA is a perfect fit for that. The Cisco Certified Network Administrator is a great next step after Network Plus, especially if you're already in the network field. You should be able to just soak in all that goodness that's in the CCNA. It's a great certification. It's not entry level, but it is a great certification to get, especially if you're planning to do anything with telecommunications, switching, routing, planning, designing, anything to do with networks. Great one to go with. Congratulations on your Network Plus. I think that's a great place to go. Well, this has been we've gone a little bit over time in the after show, but I think that fits well. I want to thank everyone for being here. We weren't able to do these study groups without you. I say it over and over again. It's absolutely true. This would be a pretty boring Q&A without the Q part. If it's all A, nobody wants to hear me talk for an hour and a half over whatever I want to talk about. We want to talk about what you want to talk about. It's a great way to do it. Remember that we have our Security Plus study group next week, exactly 1 week from today at 12 noon Eastern. You can always go to professormesser.com/calendar to find when the next live event is going to be, because you might be watching this 6 months from now. I've also got a bunch of other live events coming in January. Make sure you check the calendar for those. I need to put them on the calendar. I think most are there, but we'll put some more out. And of course, we've got a lot more happening in 2023. We can't wait to get to it. Seems like the end of the year is coming up really, really, really quick. So, of course, if you're someone who is working towards your certifications, keep doing what you're doing. You are absolutely on the right path. This is something that's going to provide you with the flexibility you need for the rest of your career. Questions, ideas, thoughts, suggestions, leave a comment on this video. Feel free to contact me directly on my website at Contact Us. Thank you for being here. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group. Thanks, everybody.